Purple haze, sunshine lady. Pastel skies for miles, far as the eye could see. Isn't it crazy, this life? Watch it all unfold. Oh, this life. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, this life. Watch it all unfold. Oh, this life. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, this life. Stargazing, promise Scorsese. Living large, hoping that maybe stay here for a while, long as we're feeling free. Ooh, isn't it crazy, this life? Watch it all unfold. Oh, this life. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, this life. Watch it all unfold. Oh, this life. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, this life. Oh, this life. Oh, this life. Watch it all unfold. Watch it all unfold. When the light of the morning illuminates the room, I can see your face, my darling, and I don't wanna move. I'm safe inside your harbor when the storm rages on, and I can jump into the waters with you. I'm calm, 'cause you make me feel like I'm someone you will hold on for a long time. And I never, never, never wanna let you go till you're mine. You take me home where I belong. It's been a long time coming, but now I'm You take me home where I belong. It's been a long time coming, but now I'm home.
Nobody stopping me. nobody stopping me. Ain't nobody stopping me. Nobody stopping me. Ain't nobody stopping me.
Started out with a dream. Now look at us. What's a vision if you ain't turning that vision to reality? All you haters can stay mad at me. From a kid to a man, from a man to a star. Bike to a minivan to a supercar. Lights, let me see those hands, show me who you are. Dice, watch your land, go and cop a new car. High stakes, heavyweight shit, came up from the bottom. Only flex flows if you got them. Problems came and forgot them. I'm on that stress-free shit. If I believe, then I can be it. And I aim to be a star. It don't matter who you are or where you come from. Had them wanting more after one song. Every morning I wake up and I'm on some. Put the beat on repeat and get the rhymes done. Started out fun, now it's my life. Married to the game, made rapping my wife. To have and to hold, through sickness and death. At least I'm at the point I can write my own checks. Hit the Royal Rumble, now I'm last man standing. Hard to stay humble when the punches keep landing. 1, 2, up uppercut hook. Learn from the best, can't do it by the book. I was born with the flow, guess it's in my genes. Material raw, but my rhymes stay clean. I don't sip lean, but I smoke a little green. Win some, lose some, stay true to the dream. From a kid to a man, from a man to a star. Bike to a minivan to a supercar. Lights, let me see those hands, show me who you are. Dice, watch him land, go and cop a new car. High stakes, heavyweight shit, came up from the bottom. Only flex flows if you got him. Problems came and forgot him. I'm on that stress-free shit. If I believe, then I can be it. Yeah, I took my time and it paid off well. Rose back up when I fell. Yeah, got defeated, made me stronger. Cause I need it, I can't wait longer. Yeah, time is up, clock's been ticking, it's crunch time. Walking the tightrope, but it's a long line. Gotta keep my balance, takes more than talent. If you drink by the liter, gotta sell by the gallon. From a kid to a man, from a man to a star. Bike to a minivan to a supercar. Lights, let me see those hands, show me who you are. Dice, watch him land, go and cop a new car. High stakes, heavyweight shit, came up from the bottom. Only flex flows if you got him. Problems came and forgot him. I'm on that stress-free shit. If I believe, then I can be it.
Say your name like a mantra, so cool, make me want ya. I've been good like I ought to, so come to me like karma. I've been here all day, waiting on my final day. Just give me a taste, won't you be my diamond ring? I love the way you make it look, make it look, make it look easy. Come on, won't you make it look, make it look, make it look easy. Make it look easy. Make it look easy. We could go to the plaza or anywhere that we wanna. Live it up for the drama. Make it hot, make it lava. We've been here all day, swimming in the finer things. Just got me a taste. Won't you be my diamond ring? I love the way you make it look, make it look, make it look easy. Come on, won't you make it look, make it look, make it look easy. Make it look easy. Make it look. 1, 2, 3, come with me. We can make it look easy. 1, 2, 3, count on me. We can make it look easy. 1, 2, 3, come with me. We can make it look easy. 1, 2, 3, count on me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with more Kart Rider Drift as we continue KDL Preseason 2. My name is Will Cho, joined by Wolf once again. And tonight, of course, since it is the weekend, we continue to have 2 team matches and another solo match.
Yeah, and today our team matches are pretty good. Our first one, Aura versus KWANGDONGFREECS, a long-anticipated match right now. Arguably our 2 strongest teams. I think Liiv SANDBOX still in the conversation there, but at the moment at the top of our standings, right? And KWANGDONGFREECS, defending champions, of course, of Preseason 1, against Aura, who are coming back looking stronger than they even did last season. And I think that we might have an ace match on our hands. I think this is going to be a pretty close one, very back and forth. And I think the coolest way, if Aura do end up winning this, that they could do it to really make a statement is to also win speed mode, because that's going to be the tough one, I think.
Yeah, especially for KWANGDONGFREECS, right? They've always been the speed demons. I mean, you know, now and then they'll still pick up their item wins as well. But if you haven't been following along, this is basically what the preseasons look like as we continue Preseason 2. We got 8 teams that have come through the qualifiers as well for the team matches. We go through a round robin in the main stage, and then the top 4 will go through a postseason tournament bracket to determine who will be the next winner.
That's right. You can see the prize money here is identical to our PS1 tournament, as here's the standings. As mentioned, KWANGDONGFREECS and Aura both at the top here at 2-0. Seongnam rocks as well in that conversation here in terms of the standings right now. Aura having a massive differential advantage over KWANGDONGFREECS at the moment, an entire 6 rounds ahead, plus that additional set.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, all also because KWANGDONGFREECS, like, they've been pushed to the ace match. Same thing with Liiv SANDBOX, right? These 2 kind of monster pro teams that have been ruling the Kart Rider universe for quite some time. And suddenly in Preseason 2 here in Drift, they're getting pushed by some of these amateur teams up all the way to the ace match. Sure, they'll still be able to secure that win, but, you know, if this trend continues, they might not get that #1 seed going into the playoffs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As our second match, we did mention it briefly, Liiv SANDBOX will also be playing today, so important for them if they want to maintain their undefeated streak to take that win over Seraphic. And we will, of course, have our solo group later on. So I'm looking at this solo group. There's some really big standout names in there. JJONG, of course. Luning is also an up-and-comer. JiMin, who actually performed very well in solos last season. Nock, a player who is insanely good at solos. He just sees the game differently than everybody else. And I think like some you know, players who have a lot of experience, right? You even have like Spell coming into this group %. So I think that this group should be pretty interesting and pretty dynamic, because I think there are some players we like to see here in this group who I'd rather not like to see that we think we'll see towards the top. But then some surprises I think could happen.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And just as a note for anyone watching, if you're waiting for the Liiv SANDBOX and Seraphic game, that will actually be played third today. That will be the last match played, just because we do have some members on Liiv SANDBOX who aren't feeling well, so we have to make arrangements for that. So to make sure that the flow of the night doesn't get interrupted, we will be playing the KWANGDONGFREECS and Aura team match first, then solos, and then the last team match. But as we like to do here at the KDL, we will be jumping right into our first matchup, and as introduced, the first team on stage is going to be the defending champions from Preseason 1. It is KWANGDONGFREECS.
No major changes here except the spelling of the IEDs of World and Cool, which always, as a caster, is a very positive thing.
Yes.
No more ZZZ, no Dog World, just World and Cool, as their names would suggest. And they are the defending champions. They have that really cool moment in the opening video, you know, that plays to the Kart Rider countdown. I really love that. And Aura here, a team that, again, is filled with strong players, great challengers. I think that their speed mode has improved a lot, and we saw it improve throughout PS1. But now in Preseason 2 here, I think that this team is a real contender here to go to the finals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, right, we like to distinguish between pro and amateur teams just based on, like, do they have an organization's backing, right? Do they have the structure, etc. But all that aside, in terms of pure reputation and skill, I mean, this team is up there, and they're continuing to prove that. Even some of their, you know, kind of trash talk that we've seen in the prior matches, they kind of call out all the other amateur teams of like, okay, you guys we're still on a different level from all you guys, right? We've been here, we've been on the stage, we've been performing, improving ourselves, and I think they're vying for that #1 spot here in Preseason 2.
Yeah, they've got some new jerseys as well, actually.
Yeah.
They were on stage today, too. The new logo looking great, so definitely becoming a powerhouse org here in Kart Rider Drift very early on. Let's focus back on the KWANGDONGFREECS here, the ace match addicts here. Now just the only thing remaining is the item match here, as they've got their fan signs and everything. As these guys are right now the best team in team mode, of course, in Kart Rider Drift, and we'll see if they can maintain that form, because like I mentioned, nothing really changed here.
Yeah, and just praying for some good items. I mean, yes, there is an element, right, of chance involved, because it's all a numbers game when it comes to item mode, but obviously we've talked about it before with the patches coming into Preseason 2. I think there's definitely a lot more that you can try to arrange for yourself. There's a little bit more agency on the player side. See if KWANGDONG have really figured something out for their own, because if not, R is a team that has always been good at that item mode.
Yeah, they made a name for themselves on it very early. So you can see that jersey I was mentioning as everyone's holding up their signs. I think this team has, you know, specifically a really strong item ace in tech, right? Nock is very wise, and Luning joining this roster, I think, adds an X factor because he's very good at late pushes. And, you know, we'll see if they can play their 1-2 strategy here and have those early leads and push against a team like KWANGDONGFREECS, who will be very disruptive early, especially, you know, we consider Spear, who's one of the best defensive players we have in KDL right now, as today's vlog title will be "We Lost Again."
Yeah, this is of course calling out KWANGDONGFREECS for their own little vlogs that they like to put up, especially their coach. So, you know, Aura just kind of trying to predict the future of KWANGDONGFREECS, and like they said in their little bio sheet, they're actually more so than item mode coming into Preseason 2. So far, their speed modes have looked impeccable. So we'll see. I mean, if they can, again, continue that against a team like KWANGDONGFREECS, then they've really proven themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the real test tonight, is can you actually go toe-to-toe with KWANGDONGFREECS in speed? And will KWANGDONGFREECS actually push them away for their style? KWANGDONG chose speed, unsurprisingly, with their priority here, and they'll pick Desert Construction Chaos, Village Boom Hill Tunnel, and Glacier Extreme Stadium, as we are going to potentially Brazil, as well as Mine Winding Slopes. We'll go to guaranteed. Those are the picks for Aura. Zigzag Timberland and Terracotta Twister being banned here. Two maps we actually see very commonly in the KDL, very rarely banned actually, but Aura just doesn't want to deal with those standard tracks against a team that's so good at speed.
Yeah, and also Mine Winding Slopes, again, one of those tracks that you would think KWANGDONGFREECS is good at, but they've always showed a little bit of, you know, difficulty and a little bit of instability, so Aura trying to call them out. Also, interestingly enough, KWANGDONGFREECS have continued the same exact order of bans and picks for all of their matches so far in team matches, so they're still continuing to just play the same tracks. They're also banning out the same tracks in order, and quite frankly, that probably won't change until they, like, lose the coin flip and don't get speed priority.
It says that Aura doesn't know the way to lose. They just don't know the way in which losing happens.
They don't know the way to lose. Well, we'll see if that happens today. Of course, the first track, it was the selection from KWANGDONGFREECS, and I mean, again, we'll just have to wait to see. They're so confident in the tracks that they feel good in, so if R can really upset them here in speed mode, I think that's the real story here. It does look like we're just gonna have to double check a couple things, maybe a couple of the players on the Aura side. We're requesting a little bit more time for the setups here.
Yeah, maybe a small headset issue here. See some keys removed here, which is actually cool to see around the arrow keys, so that you don't accidentally bump anything while you are playing, and so you have a little bit more freedom, because those arrow keys are quite critical, as any kart rider player will tell you. I actually like that. It's kind of a personal touch.
Yeah, it is kind of nice to see. Also, just because obviously, like, with the way you want to control, and sometimes you got to go for, you know, the body blocks, the stops, etc. Like, it's not just about driving on a course, right? Yeah. It's not just about racing on your own. So there is a lot of finesse involved in Kart Rider Drift. If you haven't played, no need to get scared. Obviously, you jump in, you can enjoy it a little bit, you can enjoy item mode, it starts slow. But if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, if you really want to start to get on those leaderboards, etc., it becomes a whole nother universe of racing.
Yeah, and you'll know too how much how important it is to make sure you have that muscle memory and exactly how you want to feel those arrow keys the second you start doing your license test, because that's when you're going to realize just how difficult some of these patterns and input methods really can be if you want to get the maximum speed out of a drift, for example, or cut that corner exactly the fastest possible way while still maintaining that nitro build. So it's our time. We will see. I think one of the most exciting matchups for me, as we have a little bit of extra time here, is kind of Spear versus C's. I think they have very similar play styles. Spear, I think he's a player that really stands out to me as being the defensive player. Like, he is so good at making sure that Sungbin, World, and Cool can actually stay up there as front runners, especially Sungbin, of course, when he's in that front spot. Spear is fantastic at defending him, and Nock, see if he can create some disruption himself. That 1v1, I'm so excited to see how it's going to play out.
All right, let's see if it happens right from the get-go. This is round one between the two teams. We go to Desert Construction Chaos. And the race begins between KWANGDONGFREECS and Aura here in round one.
Here we go. C's and Nock already here with Hero. In fact, a triple lead for R right now, as we will see Cool try to contest. Now, with Sungbin, World, and Spear significantly behind here, they are going to have to try to make some approaches here. It's a two-lap track, excuse me. But Luning's defense so far has been pretty unbreakable.
Yeah, I mean, a 1v3 here, and he's really able to just make sure he's keeping tabs on whoever is trying to break through that line. Now, a lot of the middle of the pack getting all bunched up, and they're going to get even closer together here as we enter the difficult sections of this track.
Yeah, Cool here actually was able to make a push to first with some collisions actually between the Aura players there. A little misplay there back on that first turn. And now Hero trying to maintain control here as World continues to compete, as this is a very neck-and-neck race right now. Aura, though, still having that 1-3-5 lead.
Yeah, I mean, with this especially, I mean, you go into the second lap, anything could happen, especially because neither team is really holding a 1-2 confidently enough. Yes, Luning a little bit behind in 8th place, and KWANGDONGFREECS might be making that call of saying, okay, 8th, we've got them locked all the way down there. Let's try to figure out what our placements want to be going towards the end of the second lap.
Yeah. Hero maintaining first place, which is keeping Aura in the lead for now. I say that as we do see 2-3-5 picked up here as World needs to get that first place spot if KWANGDONG are going to take this right now if nothing else changes. I mean, this is such a tight race. A Spear making a play for it here, but will lose control.
Yeah, but if he can just stay close to C's, right, either a 2-3-4 or a 2-3-5-6, they should be able to get the win. So World, I mean, if anything, he's just putting pressure on. He feels no pressure of his own to try to overtake Hero. He just has to make sure that they keep the 2-3 position.
Yeah, exactly. With how things have changed here, that's definitely true. As C's is actually trying his best to prevent the pass, but he will fail, and KWANGDONGFREECS now in a firm control, especially with Hero's collision.
Yeah, Hero's gonna let that second space a little pass by a bit, and Cool just trying to really contest for that, because right now, Aura, they might be able to make a push if C's overtakes Cool.
Yeah, this is so close right now here. Final push, 200 meters to go. The 1-2 is gonna get locked in.
Yeah, just the 1-2 finish. It looked like anything could happen at the end, but Cool really maintaining his namesake right at the end and just making sure that he bumps at an angle where he's still able to continue to get pushed forward a bit without losing too much speed, where the others won't be able to just run right past him around that last corner.
Yeah, and there was a moment, too, where it felt like this game was actually going to be decided from third to fifth, right, and not first and second, but ultimately it actually is just a 1-2 here for KWANGDONGFREECS as World and Cool will take it. Yeah. I think one of the big problems for Aura was the momentum that was lost on that early collision halfway through the first lap, because they actually had top 3 all controlled, and then you had that defensive setup at the back where KWANGDONGFREECS just couldn't get into position. They were holding those final 3 places, 6, 7, 8, and then one bump, and then suddenly everything changes. Now Cool has an opportunity to get into first place, and it was a great start for Aura, but they just couldn't hold on to it. And we'll see if that changes as we move into the winding slopes, their track pick here.
Yeah, of course. And one of the kind of main strategies of Aura has always been to put Hero up there, right? Let him do his own thing, and then it's C's and Nock that try to support him, and Luning will fill whatever gaps that need to be filled. Obviously, Luning, a great racer on his own, and when they first started Preseason 2, he was a speed ace. It looks like it's now Hero. But we'll see if they can get that start they want to put Hero into first place right off the get-go as we go into round 2 over on Mine Winding Slopes.
Off we go here in track 2. Spear and Cool in the lead.
They're not really letting anything happen for Aura here off the get-go. I think KWANGDONGFREECS just really understanding the agenda of Aura, that they want to put one of their members up front and then support from behind. And KWANGDONGFREECS just says, nah, if you guys don't get a good start, we haven't seen you win a speed race yet.
Yeah, that is very true. At the moment, Cool and Spear holding those first 2 spots, and when Spear is in second, man, it is just so hard to crack this guy. Look at these defensive plays here, takes that aggressive inner, and it's just blocking for C's here. C's will pass him, however.
Yeah, C's does find an opening, and C's actually gets a nice stop against Spear as well to maintain that second place position. So C's is doing his part. However, it's a 1-3-4, a hefty point lead here for KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, the rest of the team, unfortunately, just not able to pull that same weight here. So all eyes on C's right now, and we will take a look. Oh, man, rough collision there for Luning, and he and Knock are so far behind.
Yeah, meanwhile, C's actually pushed his Cool out of the way into the shortcut. Same thing with Spear. C's is doing everything he can to try to make even just 1 ounce of hope here for Aura. If Hero can try to break into the top 3, Aura should be able to overtake them.
It's a really unfortunate situation here. It's a 1-lap track, though, as Luning's still super far behind, and KWANGDONGFREECS just that 1 point ahead at the moment. C's did everything he could, but ultimately it isn't going. Well, wait!
Spear actually hits the wall on the last jump.
No way!
I was actually assuming it was the ending, and I was looking at the standings. I didn't see exactly what happened in that collision. I don't know, because Spear has done some crazy collisions there at the end to make sure his team secures the victory, but I'm not sure if this time it was intentional or if he just thought that the race was over. He kind of didn't pay attention to his flight path.
I mean, I'm guessing it's probably the latter. I mean, it sounds weird to assume that, but I feel like...
Well, yeah, because they weren't under pressure to, like, make a hard stop or anything on the jump, right?
That's quite wild. Now, hopefully we'll get a replay of it. I don't know if we will, but I'm hoping, because that was a bit odd. But otherwise, it should have been. This is locked up here on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS. It's tied up. At the end of the day, Aura will take the win, regardless of circumstances. It looks like we're just going to skip out on that replay here. But very bizarre. And you can see the players are also kind of like, that happened. We did take a win here.
Yeah, you saw it right on the camera as it ended. Aura's like, oh, like, we won, we did it. And it's like, well, I don't know if we did it, but it happened, right? We got the W. But it was close, and quite frankly, the credit should still go to C's, right? I mean, the way that he was able to take control of that first place.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. So Hero, yeah, he's just racing. He is going to go straight to the end. Oh, Spear, yeah, I think Spear, maybe he found himself jumping off the angle just a little bit. He tries to get a drift right at the end, isn't able to find the angle. He hits the wall, and that allows Aura to just cross the finish line first.
Yeah, that's really rough. And yeah, maybe it looked like for a second, maybe he was trying to actually block Hero there. But yeah, I think you're right, though. I think he just missed it, trying to get a little drift angle there. Rough times, though, here for KWANGDONG.
Well, it looks like it is tied up right now, so we'll go another round. As we go into round 3, it's Village Boom Hill Tunnel. And we begin Boom Hill Tunnel, tied 1-1 in speed mode in the team match between KWANGDONGFREECS and Aura.
Go around this roundabout here. C's and Luning take the left path here, but we'll put them at the back. And once again, KWANGDONG with a stronger start here. World and Sungbin up at the front with Spear in third. I mean, this is the ideal setup here for KWANGDONGFREECS. I mean, I'm not talking about the fact that they're all in top 4, but when you have World, Sungbin, and Spear in third, somewhere between third and fifth, he can do so much defensively. Then you've got 1 and 2 kind of on lock here, as Spear could sacrifice himself to make sure that gap widens here. As Hero is trying his best, man, but it's basically a 1v5 for him up here, as he's playing it so well, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, if he can make the same magic happen that C's did, he's trying to make it happen. Oh, hits the wall a little bit, trying to weave in between the two players of KWANGDONGFREECS, and Spear finds that opportunity to come back and help defend for his teammates.
Yeah, and Spear, the thing is, he could do so much. He could create collisions here and sacrifice his own speed, because he doesn't actually need to be in top 3 here, so he can just make Hero's life miserable at his own cost. And Hero, I mean, he is playing so well, out of his mind right now.
Yeah, even on the shortcut, he makes sure he defends himself as he makes the jump. Now, he still wasn't able to break the 1-2 just yet, but gives an opening for Luning to try to catch up. Luning gets the draft and isn't able to overpass just yet.
Yeah, it's still looking like there's just not enough members here, though, for Aura, and it is going to be a 2-1 now lead for KWANGDONGFREECS. As on this 1-lap track, it's a pretty short one. It's one of the shortest ones in competitive kart rider, and you get a lead like that early and defend it. I mean, this is, like I said, it doesn't get better than having Spear set up with 2 front runners and no challengers. Hero alone did a lot, but you need more than that. You need the rest of your team to have a better start, and that left approach going through the roundabout meant that they just didn't have any follow-up there whatsoever. And I think Kwangdong looked way better prepared for this map. Their map pick, of course, track pick, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a map, it's a track, whatever. You know?
I mean, it's a track on a map, right? In the 3rd round, so. Well, I mean, KWANGDONGFREECS, I think, again, it really just comes down to the starts have simply been better, right? Right off, as the countdown goes down to 0, they are able to not only make sure that they're getting their boosts filled up, but also block against the majority of Aura so that they can't kind of get the starting lineup that they want, the starting positions, and then Aura always has to be the ones playing catch-up. Now, Aura, they've got to figure this out, right? Whatever the answer truly is in terms of mechanics involved, they got to realize that Kwangdong's clearly all focused in on that section of the race.
Hero with some great heroics, to be honest, though, but you can just see that 1v3, there's very little options for him, and this was an incredible play here, but you know, he's still alone, has to defend himself on the shortcut 1v2, and there's just not much he could do when there's no one else anywhere nearby. And you're also, while making all those choices, knowing it may just be inevitable. Even if you get first, you can't do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aura, they got to get a better team start as the countdown goes down to 0 as we go into round 4 in the speed mode, going to WKC Brazil circuit.
Off we go on WKC Brazil. The start here, much better for Aura this time around.
Yeah, definitely the kind of style that they've always been wanting to go for. Hero and Luning up front. C's not far behind to support. Much better position than they've had in the previous tracks.
World here just trying to maintain that lead now as Spear is getting on the aggressive here.
And we got to mention that the WKC tracks in general, they are a bit wider, so there's a lot more chance to catch up. However, out of those, because of the kind of slight shortcuts you can take, Brazil does present the most difficulty, I would say, out of all the WKC tracks.
I would agree, especially when you consider there's a lot of ways to avoid attacks here, and you can, of course, go a little off-road, as we're seeing here on this track, and it's usually the most common build to do so, and it becomes very easy to actually, if you're watching, if you're very diligent, avoid some of those back attacks. Now, Hero and C's here up in first and second for a moment. Still, Aura maintaining a pretty nice amount of control, 135, 7 points ahead as we move into the final lap here. We will need to see a more consistent form of attack here from Spear, who has otherwise looked invisible outside of the first 500 meters or so.
Yeah, I mean, also credit to Nock, right, keeping those members behind. Meanwhile, it's World and Sungbin just trying to break apart the potential 1-2, and so far, I mean, World's doing a good job of contesting for that number 1.
Yeah, it's just kind of been a draft pack here as well. Everybody is just riding at the same speed, and because of that radius you talked about, the track being so wide, it's really difficult to break through. Luning and Nock pushing into first and second now.
Oh, but KWANGDONGFREECS, they're actually now they've got the triplets all up front. They're ready to try to break apart the lineups of Aura. Now, currently, because of the potential 1-2, Aura seems to be way ahead in points, but if you get the right draft in one of these corners, KWANGDONGFREECS, they could overtake.
Yeah, Sungbin here pushing forward. If World can actually go and join him, that might be the best way here. Will he take a greedy inner? He's blocked out.
Oh, and Aura, they're able to close him out. They even overtake at the end to get the 1, 2, and 3 finish for good measure, and Aura will be taking us to the final round of speed mode.
Yeah, match point here for Aura in speed. This is what we wanted to see if Aura was going to take KWANGDONGFREECS out tonight to prove themselves in speed mode. Yeah, they had the gimme. We'll give them that, you know, that there was that one mistake, right? But beyond that, they've looked pretty competitive here and maintaining that lead at the very end, even though there was a great push there from World. It looked like maybe Sungbin and World could actually take the 1-2 and steal this win away. Was not going to happen.
Yeah, and again, it really comes down to the fact that, first of all, Aura got the start that they usually like to have, which is sending Hero and Luning up front to start to race on their own measures. And then you select a track, you know, like the WKC tracks, where you have opportunities and you have a little bit more agency of when to pick and choose to get those drafts, right? Because everyone's always going to be kind of near another racer, so you can choose to get those, whether it's around a corner, whether it's on a straightaway, to try to overtake at an unsuspecting moment.
Yeah. Really good defensive play, man. William, it is the final track here, Glacier Extreme Stadium. One of these two teams is going to take speed, but will we see a potential upset? Let's find out on our final track.
And the last track to determine who will be winning speed mode between these two teams. Of course, this selection coming in from KWANGDONGFREECS as they had speed mode priority.
Cool taking the lead here. Nock trying to contest, as we see at the back of things here. A lot of chaos, a few collisions actually as well, as Hero is really struggling to run up where he wants to, but actually will win out in that fight. Sungbin dropping back significantly.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot more aggression from Hero, right? So even though he's not in first place, he's doing what he can to really fulfill his role. But that does mean now Nock and C's, kind of as those veterans on this team, they really got to help kind of present an opportunity for maybe Luning or even Hero, who's now trying to catch up to the rest of the pack.
Yeah, you can see World and Sungbin are just super far behind us. We head into these hairpin turns here. I think the only hope for KWANGDONG is actually a 1-2 finish here for Spear and Cool. That's what it's looking like right now. Two unlikely heroes here for KWANGDONG. I say that though, we do actually see a few move up here. World actually now into top 4. Now they've got the 2-3-4 win condition as we move into the final lap.
Yeah, and C's trying to go for an aggressive straight boost on that jump to try to overtake Spear and maybe knock him out of the race. He actually ends up falling way too far behind, so took a high risk, and it does not pay off. So now it's really down to Nock, has to hold on to that first place, and Luning's got to find an opening, but there's a lot of KWANGDONGFREECS racers.
Oh, Luning actually holding that wall very nicely there and keeping Sungbin off of him. Has made such a great recovery here, but they need to push for that 1-2 right now, and it unsuccessful. Another collision as well, dropping Nock back, and this one feels doomed now. He's back at 6, and World is just blocking him out.
Yeah, World, you can just tell by the movement from World, he is only focused on blocking out those members. However, 3 members of Aura all come at the same time. World cannot defend them all at once. Hero's now trying to find an opening. He weaves in between 2 players to try to catch up.
Incredible attempt here from Hero, just 1 point behind right now. Can he get the pass? He's taking an aggressive inner.
Oh, he's not able to get the pass, and Luning also loses out that first place. Luning actually tries to go for a stop near the end, but he's not going to find the target he wants. Actually, both Aura players bumping into each other, and KWANGDONGFREECS with the 1-2 finish will secure speed mode 3-2.
Yeah, 3-2 victory here. It was hard fought though. It was not an easy one, and KWANGDONG really were forced to work for it, you know, and I really like the attempt there from Hero though at the final moments for Aura, because in those hairpin turns you have some of the most agency in the track pool right now, and he was like, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna actually go for this crazy build, hard inner, and then try to push the wide turn there on the right side to pass, but it doesn't have enough momentum, unfortunately. And KWANGDONG will take speed here, but this is the expected result, right? Which is why we were saying if Aura wins it in an ace match, you know, you'll feel good about that if you're an Aura fan, but to do it in speed, that's what would be the most impressive. Because Aura is, of course, more famous for their item mode, even though their speed has improved quite a bit. So now we'll have Tech, the item ace, one of our more interesting item ace players here coming in. There he is on camera.
Yeah, and Hero will be sitting out. So they did have a bit of a switch up, right? As we started preseason 2, it was Luning, who was kind of the speed ace, so when he played the speed bone, and now they say, okay, Hero, like, you're the guy who's meant to focus on speed. Luning will be continuing to play here alongside Tech and the rest of the squad for item mode as we take a look at the track bans and picks.
Yeah, Sphinx's Riddle will be the first choice here for Aura. We've seen this one before already. Shark's Wake, one of our newer tracks here for this season, and Mine Motherload. So that's what Aura decided to go for. They had, of course, item priority here. And then Town Hall and Brody's Gloom will be the tracks for KWANGDONGFREECS. As we will see, once again, London Knight is banned away. I think the variance that you have means good item mode teams really just like to ban that one, because they're like, sometimes you get London Knighted, you know? Yeah. Sometimes it's just a bad time on London Knight. I respect that they banned that one, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you think, like you said, Wolf, if you think you have the advantage, I mean, that track is fairly easy to catch up on, right? It's very wide. The items are kind of spaced out in the exact positions you would want them to. So there's a lot of more, I guess, things that you're not accounting for. You don't have as much control over your own destiny. It's much more about kind of just the relativity of what items you get against each other. So first of all, we will be going to the track choice coming in from Aura as they try to tie things up in this team match as we go into Desert Sphinx's Riddle. And the race begins. Aura, can they win the item mode and bring us to yet another ace match here in KDL Preseason 2?
It's going to be the questions. We've already got some attacks flying through. C's taking the lead here, but doesn't have anything defensive, so he won't be holding on to it for very long. We'll actually pick up an EMP, actually several EMPs for our leaders here. Quite a significant item to hold at this early stage, and ooh, look at this, some lightnings picked up here in the first lap. So let's see if they use them for tempo, or if they want to hold them for a timing. Because often if you pick up 2 lightnings like this, you could just send those players to the back and have them just attack from behind, pick up some angels and say, all right, if you can push towards the front, we just time this at the very last part of lap 3 and end the race. And that's exactly what they're doing, stacking those players towards the bottom side of the standings now.
Yeah, I mean, they can, again, the double lightning alone is just so much pressure, right, against the enemy team that they have to be prepared for this. And they're, quite frankly, they don't have the arsenal to prepare against it yet. We're actually not seeing any angels on either team. So a lot more calculation in terms of, okay, what's the sequence of attacks that we need to account for?
Yeah, and the drop rate for those two is a little bit tougher to pick, you know, when you're trying to force those tempo advantages early. Is right now, I mean, KWANGDONGFREECS here have such a stacked set of items. It's really going to be hard here for the side of Aura, and they're not even in control at the front here. Barricade, not the item Knock wants here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we'll be entering that, you know, 3rd lap here soon enough, and still no sign of really defense from either team, right? We've got magnets, lightning. Sure, you have a couple EMPs here and there, and that'll stop the magnets, but if you get a couple more, you know, rockets, if you get a couple more water balloons even, that really kind of, as you try to exit out of the tomb here, this could spell trouble.
Yeah, the magnet picked up for Luning, and I mean, he might really be the only one who's the hope here for the side of Aura. If he could actually push through, maybe if he could pick up a shield, that could be the way. He's unfortunately going to eat this UFO early on.
Yeah, Aura right now, actually, they have the 1-2 position, so if they can have one person kind of dedicated to try to draw that aggro, sure, World shoots forward for now, but they have enough of their racers up front that one can draw the aggro, and then the others can try to push right through.
Luning getting caught here, and here's the first lightning coming through, and this is World just using it to ride forward.
Oh!
But hit!
Yeah, Knock just makes it right through, actually makes way for C's as well. Oh man, World thought he had it in the bag, but he just gets absolutely chain attacked, has to try to avoid the barricade as well. And during that moment, 2 of the members of Aura will just slide right on by.
Yeah, I mean, I was just tunneling on the lightning hard. I thought with the advantage they had there that he was just going to be fine. And when the lightning struck, it looked for a moment like he was, in fact, going to just have that one on lock. But with the missile coming through, he's hit by the rocket and the chain attacks come through. And just not enough of an advantage there. So Aura, because of the timing there at the very end, pretty much stock standard. It wasn't like a, okay, we've got this exact specific way we're going to end the track. Nope, just going to attack the guy in front, pass him at the last second. Done. Easy.
Yeah,
the best defense is good offense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I also like the fact that, you know, with all those magnets that they had stored up, instead of trying to save it for the very end like we used to in Preseason 1, they basically use it as a tempo to really say, okay, let's all get to the front or middle of the pack. That way, when we chain these attacks, at least one of us will make it through, right? So really just understanding that, you know, it's a numbers game at that point if neither team is really holding on to a bunch of angels. So good play by Aura. Let's see if KWANGDONGFREECS can bounce back on their own pick as we go into round 2 of item mode between these 2 teams on Village Town Hall.
Off we go. Aura leading us 1-0 here as we move into our second track of item mode.
And this is another 3-lapper. Now this one, of course, there's a little bit of an interesting setup here as you kind of have the over-under setups, a lot of narrow passageways in those tunnels as well. So different items can find some different uses, especially near the finish line, right? You can try to turn around and really mess up the first place runner on the opponent team and things like that.
Yeah, Knock and Luning taking a pretty significant lead here, but will be under attack as a really big bubble actually going to connect here. C's doing some damage and widening that gap between Knock and the rest of the team.
Just going over that banana. Well, he does go into the wall a little bit further than perhaps he wanted to off of that spin out, but it is item mode, so he'll be able to cash right back up. No big problem there.
Yeah, you can see our, I don't want to call it a kill feed, but we do have a feed that tracks the item connections there to the bottom left, so you can see who is hitting whom. Coming through is cool. Trying to actually control here in first place. He and Knock are kind of fighting in this weird 1v1 right now as a Nitro will come through for Luning, as we're going to see they can pick up doubles here. Luning actually holding now 2 rockets, so he is dangerous. Will fire one off right away.
Yeah, and even though, you know, you don't get knocked out of the race as much as you used to now with these balloons on your cards, again, if you continue to chain it, you're just never going to regain that speed that you lost.
Yeah, exactly. And Luning, I mean, he is holding both of these right now. We'll toss one out so we can grab the shield. We'll be able to absorb the hit. He's in first place right now, and the tempo advantage does feel like Aura is holding it pretty significantly right now. And Nock also has a magnet, so he can use that to continue to push forward here and pull one of these players back.
Yeah,
really like the setup.
Yeah, and if Luning, you know, if he continues to just get a bunch of these defensive items, he can again be that one that draws out all the aggro, draws out all the attacks of the enemy team, and then one of his teammates, maybe like Tech, who has that boost, can be positioned to try to overtake first place again.
Now, World has 2 Lightnings, which is, again, kind of astronomically low chances, but he should just be able to toss those out here. 400 meters to go. He probably wants to use it right now. Here he comes.
There it is. There's one, and the second one obviously goes out right away as well, just to make sure, and that's an easy finish line cross here for Guangdong Freaks.
Yeah, I mean, we had the joke earlier about the item god, but I mean, he did say, I will bestow on you the double lightning and an angel, and thou shalt win this track.
That's pretty much how it happened, actually. The prayers were answered for Guangdong Freaks.
Because, I mean, with 2 lightnings and an angel, it's really easy to just force your way through there, and that is exactly what happened in the final moments. I feel bad for Aura on this one. Look, they had a great tempo advantage. I liked how they were playing the early game, but sometimes you get a little bit unlucky. The lead was not big enough to protect them from an attack like that.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, it happens sometimes, right? It happens sometimes on item mode, but that's what we have best ofs, right? And that's why, obviously, we have this round robin. Now, as we've come to...
He's praying to the item god.
Yeah, he's like, come on, where's our turn? Like, come on. Well, we'll see. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, sure, sometimes the chances are in favor of your opponents, but it is a numbers game, and if you are the better team, you should always have a couple more options in your pocket. And I'm looking forward to see what Aura's got prepared here on Shark's Wake, because this is another one that a lot of these teams try to avoid against teams that they might think are weaker against them, just because there's a lot more wider areas, things like that. So the fact that Aura picked it up, curious to see what they have planned against Guangdong Freaks as we go into round 3 of item mode between the 2 teams on Glacier Shark's Wake. And we begin on Shark's Wake. Aura trying to regain the lead here in item mode.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, very wide open here on Shark's Wake outside of these initial turns here, and it's a track that I think is really beautiful. Like, I actually really like it. Got a lot of penguins and stuff like that, but it is a track where you see a lot of explosive tempo-based plays, right? It's an item mode map where you attack often, so you're just going to see these flying non-stop as we see here.
Just everything being piled on here throughout the entire first lap.
Because there's not a lot of architecture on the map to work with to try to use your items to look for a positional advantage or some sort of really cool timing or tech. It's really just about using your items aggressively and fighting it out all track long. And we're going to have 3 laps of this as we move in the second lap right now. You can see it's just constantly on the feed. Attack, attack, attack.
Yeah, that's all we're seeing, right? Not enough blocks either. I mean, World has a couple shields on him right now. He's able to avoid one of those water bombs, but outside of that, a lot of these are connecting. The magnets are getting negated by those EMPs, so we're starting to see the EMP really show its true power here preseason 2.
I mean, with 3 shields picked up and now an EMP for World, that's his 3rd shield in a row, and he has the EMP here. He has built a significant advantage right now over Tech. He's actually really way up there right now, and with his luck continuing to come through, another shield is picked up. This guy is starting to be so far ahead that even when he does get hit by a UFO, he's going to have an advantage. But finally, eventually runs out of shields here.
Yeah, and everyone else is going to be able to catch back up here in item mode. Now, like you mentioned, he's finally going to cycle through because he doesn't have that first place anymore. Now, World does hold on to a UFO. He's just going to use it right away to continue that tempo because, like you said, Wolf, here it's just attack, 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 try to maintain the tempo.
Yeah, now he's had a good banana earlier. This one's not going to connect, unfortunately, though, but he's holding on to a magnet. As Nock moves into first place, he's got that old magnet rush combo, which will still work.
Yeah.
And they have a lightning here, too. I mean, this is looking really good for Aura right now.
Yeah, and Luning's positioned with a double boost as well, so if one of his teammates get taken out, he should be able to go through. Yeah, Nock's pushing forward, and Luning's got that double boost. He does get it by the UFO, and it slows down just enough for Sungmin to pass him by in the last split second.
Oh, you love to see the excitement on his face as well. I mean, it doesn't really get closer than that.
Wow.
A photo finish for Sungbin to take the win here for Kwangdong, man. And Aura, 2 tracks in a row. It just feels like everything is against them right now in item here. And this will, of course, push KWANGDONGFREECS to match point right now, 2-1. But, like...
Dang. I mean,
you just got to feel for these guys.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that UFO flying forward. I was like, there's no way, right? Like, he's so far ahead with double boost. Like, there's no way that actually slows him down in time. And it hits him right before he's able to cross the finish line. And the aliens had other plans here as they allow Sungbin to cross the finish line first.
Yeah.
And they lead item mode.
He did identify the object. He was like, oh no, it's on me. I'm not flying.
Oh, no.
I'm slowing.
Yeah, they don't feel good about that one, but they're going to have to bounce right back if they want to push this to a potential ace match, because they're down even in item mode as we go into round 4 on Factory Brody's Glue.
Off we go. KWANGDONGFREECS here, match point, series point as well. A win here on this track would actually just end it 2-0 for them. So we're going to see what World picks up. Just the Nitro, nothing too fancy in this first lap.
Yeah, trying to go for the double item, misses it, but says, we'll just move on forward, try to fill it up on the next pass, and he is going to get a water bomb for his trouble, so he tries to use the boost first to try to catch up.
Luning and Nock being the ones in the front here, and Nock, like World last track, will have 2 shields he can hold on to try to further that lead and avoid some of those attacks.
Yeah, of course, this track, wow, the Barricade actually doing some good work against a lot of these players. Now, contrary to Shark's Wake, like we talked about, this track, there's a lot of architecture, right? A lot of obstacles on the map to work with, so the timing of these items are ever more important.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, you got doors closing, you have several different openings, so you have to know which path your opponent's going to take, for example, before you fire that item. I do agree. It's not just press the button, fire the item. You actually have to think about how you're going to utilize it. It's an Angel and EMP are picked up here for Luning, who's sitting up in first place right now. This is pretty massive for Aura if he can hold on to those as we move into our final lap here. Double Angel now for Nock. So they can, if they can just hold first, you know, they can pretty much absorb everything.
Yeah, Nock's actually just going to take those hits. He says, I'll keep the double angels for my teammates, try to set them up so that other people can try to gain better aggressive items, but it's not coming through just yet for Aura.
Yeah, World here is going to get EMP, but he's still maintaining first place, and you can have all those defensive items, but it doesn't matter if you can't get in position to win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really seeing an opening right now, Wolf. The KWANGDONGFREECS, they've got 3 members up front. They've got a shield and an EMP as well. No one's touching World. Aura, they have to start to cycle through these angels just so they can try to get an attack on the board.
Oh,
tag! He tries to sneak right through. Makes the wrong selection, and KWANGDONGFREECS is starting to run away with the C's, does have a boost. He has one opportunity here. The angel used so he can try to go through. Negates that. Oh, lightning. But he gets wisped.
Yeah, he's whisked, and now World here is eating a lot of damage, but Sungbin will actually get through the line first. Looked scary there for a second, our observers, man, giving me a jump scare. Giving me a jump scare about how Sungbin will cross the line, and KWANGDONGFREECS will take the series 2-0. Our defending champions here do beat these new up-and-comers, Aura, a team that looked so strong. And a team that gave them trouble even in those playoffs for preseason 1.
Yeah.
But a clean 2-0 here. I think obviously the speed mode a lot closer than what happened here in items. But it also felt like circumstance and the item gods, as we'll call it, were on the side of Kwangdong. But this will put them firmly in first place, especially when we consider the round advantage they had going into this one too. They are up there in our standings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a win that KWANGDONGFREECS is going to feel really good about. And quite frankly, as you can see on the faces of the players, I think for Aura, it does feel disappointing, right? It looked like there was actually so much potential for them to make this upset. It sounded like it wasn't going to be as crazy as you might have imagined in preseason 1. And yet, you know, after that close run in speed mode, item just did not go their way today.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just how it goes. And I feel like we talked about this, you and I, a lot last week, but I do think...
Yeah, Hero just kind of crying, you know, tears here. Obviously, you know, he wasn't playing in the item mode either, so he just kind of feels bad for his teammates. But I like what you mentioned, right? While the item mode doesn't go their way, it's also because they kind of chose to always set themselves up for tempo.
Yeah.
And then if you don't get the items, then you're really screwed, right?
Yeah,
so you got to have
exactly.
another option in your pocket.
Yeah, we talked about this last week a lot, but I think the way the item mode has changed is definitely for the better. It makes it a more enjoyable mode to watch and to play. So I'm happy with that. And with Aura losing here today, it's a regular season match against one of your toughest opponents. When we go into playoffs later, if they meet again, as they did in playoffs last season, you know, you have a more expanded series that you could play against this team when it is, you know, all or nothing. And I think you can't really be disappointed with playing the defending champions this close if you're Aura.
Yeah, absolutely not, right? While, again, the potential seemed to be there, I think they had expectations for themselves. It's just a round robin. They'll still get another chance if they were able to make it to the playoffs, which they most likely should. So for Aura, I think it's going to be important to just say, okay, brush this under for now. Let's move on to the next matches. Let's continue to figure out this meta, especially in item mode, so that we can be prepared for that tournament stage.
Yeah, it's us. I am looking forward to seeing KWANGDONGFREECS continue to dominate, though, on another, like on another opposite side of things. We talked about, like, okay, they won, a little bit of unfortunate circumstance for Aura, but KWANGDONG, this team actually might be on their way to building a dynasty, right, in the early Cartwriter days. Now, these are preseason, so these will not be counted as, like, official records. Not going to be going, okay, man, back-to-back titles already as move into the first season of KDL. But, I mean, the expectations for this team were high, right? They delivered. They're continuing to deliver. Still undefeated here. Only 3 matches, but some pretty tough opponents they've come up against already. So I'm liking their chances.
Yeah, I think so. And I agree with what you said, right? If they're able to do maybe even back-to-backs in preseason, while it doesn't go down in the official records and their official careers, it sets the tone for the first regular season at the end of the year to say, okay, that's the target to beat. Who's going to be able to beat KWANGDONGFREECS? And that's a storyline that you enjoy as a player, right? When you say, okay, like, we're the only one that everyone's talking about because everyone wants to try to beat us. I mean, that's the position you want to get to, and I think KWANGDONGFREECS, they are well on their way to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you get to be like the final boss. And everybody knows it, right? And you've already got the special place in the opening video, right, as well. And we'll see what happens for the next one. You know, how much cooler can KWANGDONG be? And I don't know. I think for some of these young players as well on the side of Aura, they look like they really want it. They look like they're really motivated. And sometimes a loss like this can actually be really good for a team in regular season where, you know, it gets you to realize some of your faults. Maybe they look at this and go, wow, normally when we do this against weaker teams in item mode, it always works for us, but maybe there's actually some flaws in what we're trying to do here. And if the coaching and the review of this is good, then they probably won't be walking away from this one saying, RNG got us, unlucky, you know?
Sure, yeah. So hopefully they are able to bounce back. I would very much love to see that happen for Aura. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, we have more matches lined up for you tonight. In fact, we're going to the solo match first, and we'll return to team matches. So the solo match, it's Group D of the round of 32. The only group with no new rookies here for solos. Can't wait for it. We'll be right back after this break.
여덟 명이서 달릴 때랑 1대1의 분위기는 좀 느낌이 달라요. 초반 스타트를 내줘도 오히려 뒤쪽에서 과감하게 승부를 걸 수 있다라는 장점이 있기 때문에
이렇게 순식간에 숨막히는 승부를 약간 흔들어 비는 월드.
라인이 없는 구간이었거든요. 저 구간이 최대한 탄력을 붙여야 되는. 근데 썸머가 회복이 나쁘지가 않아요.
그렇죠. 이 빌드를 타면 그다음부터 드랩거리로 접근할 수 있죠.
허접한데요, 썸머.
순식간에 왔습니다.
이야,
일단은
좋았는데요.
좋았는데 여기가 뭐 걸렸는데 이러면 월드 실수를 약간 바랄 수밖에 없는 상황인데.
네, 여기서 걸리지 않았으면 바로 이 구간에서 드리프트가 걸리면서 쫓아갈 수 있었을 텐데 지금은 뭡니다.
자, 결국 월드 그대로 들어갈 수 있을 때 마지막에 휘날리는 월드.
이 드리프트에서는 이 앞쪽 포지션에서 깜짝 스탑이 워낙 상대가 방심하는 틈에 들어갈 수 있는데 그러한 것들을 월드 선수가 잘 알고 있었고, 그러니까 앞 포지션을 잡으면서 주도권을 가져가는 게 중요한 에이스 결정전이거든요. 정말 노련했어요. 그러면서 전승 행진을 이어나갑니다. 한 명 한 명 오히려 지금 공략을 당해버리면서 점점 뒤쳐지고 있기 때문에 스펠과의 거리 차이가 좀 많이 나기 시작했어요. 그리고 띵이 올라가고 있습니다.
그래도 방금 전에 띵이 부스터 발동시킬 때 몬스터가 몸으로 막아주는 부분은 굉장히 좋았습니다만 혼자서는 2명, 3명 못 막죠.
잠깐 그렇습니다. 이번엔 이 다른 역할들을 좀 해주고 있는 상황에서 스펠과 쪽이 올라가고 있어요. 또 이렇게.
야, 순간적으로 가속받았을 때 앞 포지션 잡고 그 다음에 뒤쪽을 한 번 더 막아주면 안 된다 싶으니까 다시 한번 몬스터 쪽으로 바라보는 띵이거든요.
그리고 똥은 스펠의 주행을 방해하지 않으면서 적성거리를 유지하고 있는데 이거 두찌가 이런 식으로 막아주면 앞쪽이 뚫리더라도 뒤쪽에서 순위가 다져지지를 못하겠네요.
벌크업된 광산 수레를 정말 기가 막히게 활용을 하고 있습니다. 그 사이에 스펠은 1위 유지합니다. 이렇게 달릴 줄 아는 선수의 스펠도.
이게 포지셔닝이 한번 되고 나니까요. 1대1 싸움은 거의 무조건 가져가고요. 뭐 1대2 싸움도 버티고 있다 보니까 원투가 잡히지 않고 또 공략당했어요.
날아갑니다.
퍼펙트 포지션.
띵도 살짝 걸리긴 했었는데 그 전까지의 과정이 너무 좋았습니다.
그냥 쭉쭉 가죠. 스펠 띵.
와,
두째까지.
두찌가 또 막아냈어요.
광산수의 역할들을 좀 다르게 봐야겠네요. 그 역할을 두찌가 해줬고 결국 이렇게 1, 2, 3, 4 완벽한 포지션 싹.
두찌가 포지션 변경 이후에 가장 완벽하게 블로킹, 스위핑을 해낸 경기라고 볼 수가 있겠고 중간중간에 띵의 플레이에서 위험 구간에서 속도를 줄여주면서 상대방에게 역전을 당하더라도 그 다음 공격 타이밍을 노리는 장면도 수도 없이 나왔거든요. 단순히 잘 달리는 선수뿐만 아니라 정말 상황에 따라서 민첩하게 반응할 줄 아는 선수라는 생각이 듭니다.
김현 선수가 조금 거리가 좀 많이 나는 상황이기 때문에 좀 더 빠르게 합류해줘야 될 것 같고 너무 뒤에 있다 보니까 불편한 나오거든요.
이거 막아내면서 갑니다.
네. 물거리가 아직까지는 약간 애매한 상황이기는 한데 그래도 이런 식으로 되면 물거리까지는 왔거든요.
지금 넣기에는 그래서 돌아갈 때거나 근데 너무 빨리 합류해버려서 이러면 그냥 물 버리는 게 낫지 않나 싶어요.
또 돌아왔어요. 띵.
이거 락스가 앞쪽으로 가더라도 우주선이 바로 들어갈 수 있겠고
물풍선 저거 왜 이래요? 왜 이렇게 많아요?
페이지가 지금 같은 팀원의 도움을 받기가 어려운 상황이 됐거든요.
아니 갑자기 뭐 버블 파이터예요? 이번에 좀
자, 아이템이 들어올게.
완전 백인데 조지가 들어갑니다.
와, 핑크로 돌면서 미사일 맞으면서 떨어졌는데 하필이면 그 자리에 바리케이드가 있는 바람에 백스핀 돌았죠.
야, 이거 마지막 양상이 너무 다른데요,
예.
진짜.
아 이거 멀미하겠네요. 돌다 보니까 완전 몇 바퀴 돈 거예요 지금.
근데 호준이 휘말리지 않을까 싶었었는데 정말 차체를 빠르게 잡았습니다.
민식이 굉장히 공격적으로 들어갔었는데 방금 전에 히어로가 조금 한 발 앞서서 앞쪽으로 차체 안 뺐으면 큰일 날 수도 있었습니다.
그럼 과감하게 계속 지금 가죠. 왜냐면 오늘 자신이 있거든요.
히어로가 오늘 완전히 풀린 몸 상태를
네.
보여주고 있는데 호준이 아직까지 안 내주는 가운데 민식 합류 중.
여기를 달리고 있을 때 선수들의 심리는 뒤에 따라온 다른 선수들을 좁비대로 인식을 해야 됩니다. 잘못해가지고 걸어가다가 물리면 진짜 죽는다고 생각을 해야
그리고
되거든요.
나왔는데 어려운 구간에서 히어로 선수가 쇼커팅을 진짜 기가 막히게 넣어주면서 빌드를 만들어가거든요. 그러니까 그만큼 본인 컨트롤에 진짜 자신이 있는 것 같아요.
그래서 이렇게 근데 호준이 노련함으로 막습니다.
이거 맨 마지막에 점프대 구간에
이거
이거 재밌겠어요.
돌았죠. 히어로 또 완전 돌았어요.
야, 호준 깜짝 놀라서 사실 호준 크게 휘말린 게 아니었었는데 순위 많이 밀렸습니다. 이거
이러면
민식 드랩
들어왔습니다. 히어로가.
민식 2등.
그러면 호주는 2위를 기록할 수도 있는 상황에서 지금 5위까지 밀린 거니까 속금 쓰리죠.
그리고 말씀드렸었던 히어로는요. 그러니까 본인 컨트롤에 자신이 있는 것 같아요. 그렇기 때문에 이런 정말 호준이 라인 블로킹 계속 해주면서 뚫기 어려운 상황 속에서 19 스핀턴으로 거기서 그냥 순위를 뚫어내다 보니까 그 경험 많은 호준 입장에서도 어쩔 수 없었습니다.
현재까지는 드래프트를 못 받는 거리지만 드래프트 받을 수 있는 거리까지 왔을 때 일만이 자랑하는 사각에서 갑자기 튀어나오면서 상대방이 예상하지 못한 라인으로 진입하는 그런 모습이 나올 수도
여기
있거든요.
직선 구간에서 아마 드래그랑 타임이 좀 잡아내면서 빠르게 좀 붙어서까지 가지 않을까 싶거든요. 그러면 잔디 구간에서는 필연적으로 붙어요.
자 거의 다 왔습니다. 힐이 이렇게 자연스럽게 붙어버렸습니다.
점프하는 직선 구간에서 드랩을 받기 위해서 약간 조절을 했던 일인데 일단 그래도
빌드가-
붙는 데까지는
빌드가
성공하죠.
좀 갈렸어요. 이러면은 미리 좀 과감하게 한번 가볼 수 있나요?
자 부스 하나 더 갖고 있는 상황에서 힐의 환경은 뚫어내는 환경이게.
이거 스탑할까봐 살짝 눈치 본 것 같아요, 서로.
그래도 닐이 약간 부스터가 더 유리한 건 변함이 없어요. 맨 마지막에 호준이 긁기라도 하면 굉장히 큰일 수 있습니다.
아주 과감한 직구 한번 가볼 수도 있겠고요. 근데 이거
어떻게?
스탑하면 모르거든요.
호준이 어떤 타이밍 지금 일단 부서 약간 다른데 여기서
근데
부서
이 라인 블로킹 좀 크게 들어갔어요.
저쪽 호준이
자 이거 왼쪽으로 한번 꺾고 오른쪽으로 꺾었을 때
오른쪽이다.
그래도
라인 블로킹 한번 더.
그런데 힐이 끌어요.
더 막아야 될 것 같은데요.
막아야죠.
몸싸움 그리고 마지막에 힐입니다.
호준이 뺐다가 그 다음에 드래프트를 발동시키는 것이 아니라 블로킹하는 선택을 했는데 닐이 끝까지 코스가 길다는 걸 파악하고 있었어요.
마지막 직선 구간에서의 닐이 정말 심리전 싸움에서 이겼다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수가 있겠고 1분 30초를 끌려갔습니다. 그런데 그 마지막 한 번의 기가 막힌 타이밍을 잡아냈어요.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to do a little bit of jumping around tonight to accommodate for the Liiv SANDBOX players who aren't feeling well, so they have to play remotely. So we're going to jump to solo matches first, and then we'll return to the team matches later on. And Wolf, we've got a banger of a solo match group here in the round of 32. Almost looks like it should be a round of 16, given the reputation that all these players have.
Yeah, all these players have experience, right? These are not young players who are inexperienced, right? We don't have the rookie conversation like we had with most, for example. And here's our format, of course, for solos, just to remind everybody, as if you don't get out of the first initial group stage, you are eliminated. But if you get out, you have the opportunity, of course, to then play double elimination. So this is arguably the most stressful and like worst part of the tournament for what happens to you if you lose, right? I mean, just straight up. So really important here, and we're in our final group. Of course, you can see the prize pool down below, so quite a lot of money on the line here if you do win, even though it's a preseason.
Yeah, I mean, pretty solid, right? So first place, that's about 10 million Korean won, which is about, you know, like 9,000 USD. So, and it's solos, right? So you take that all for yourself. Now we're looking at Group D. We just had Group C yesterday. Of course, A and B happened last week. And Group C, I would say, looking at the lineup, those are exactly the players you kind of assume would move on, and Ding, Sungbin, Joker, and Hyunsu. But now We've got like JJONG, who's everyone's been waiting for him to enter the solo matches here at KDL after his incredible reign over at KRPL. But then you've got I mean, everyone here is experienced, right? I mean, we'd have to list off the entire group to say, who's got what experience, because all of them have had the experience to play in KDL and in solos.
I'm glad to see Cosu make a return too, because he had a bit of a rougher start to preseason 1, getting eliminated fairly early despite his experience. He's out of the military and trying to make a return here in KDL. So hope he can perform tonight, as while we do have some clear favorites, I would say, I do think that this is going to be one of those groups where you just don't really know until the end who's getting out. I don't think it's going to be like, okay, we pretty much know top 4, and then we're going to see who hits 50 first. I don't think it's going to be that kind of group. As JJONG is our yellow racer, one of those favorites, though, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. While it is his first time in KDL, don't let that fool you. I mean, he was the king of KRPL, right, over at Kartrider Rush Plus. And after his ace match win streak in Preseason 1, everyone's been really craving to see him in solos. But next up with the Black Stripe, it is going to be Luning, who we just actually saw race over for Aura.
Yeah. So hopefully he's not feeling too sad about what went down. Of course, taking a loss earlier today, but this is about your solo career now, and a player I think a lot of people are very excited for here in KDL.
Yeah, just a fan cheering on for Luning to tear it up on the track. Next up, it is going to be Percent, his sign saying 100% chance to flip the entire KDL. And this guy, another racer over by Sensation, alongside Hojin, who has so much experience, right, within Kartrider. So he's trying to make it over to the round of 16. He's got a lot of stuff going for him today.
He's got a lot of people here to support him as well. Love these signs. The double sign meta is alive and well. As we move on to our white racer here, JiMin, who is the former item ace for Liiv SANDBOX, who had a great performance in solos, making it pretty deep in preseason 1, and I'm hoping that he could continue to actually make that happen. Here you can see the only plays he haven't gotten are the podium ones, 1, 2, or 3, but he has gone very deep.
Yeah, I mean, got that 4th place, setting a career high for himself in solos in Preseason 1. See if he can renew that record. And here's that man you were talking about earlier, Wolf. It's Cosu. Again, one of the kind of veteran players in terms of age, but also this is one of those guys who used to play as a player himself and then was a coach. He even played as like staff, went to the military, and now he's back.
Yeah, one of the older players in Kartrider Drift League. As moving on here to Nock, who will be in green tonight. Super Observer mode. This guy is so good at solos because he can just see openings so well, and he's a player that even if you look at him in the standings, he's back at 7th, 8th place. Watch the final push, because he finds a way into top 4. He's more of a pension-style racer here in solos.
Yeah, he just kind of sneaks in for those extra points, so we'll see what he does. Spell over from Rox as well. Songnam Rox alongside JJONG, so both of them kind of cheering each other on to say, let's go up to the round of 16 together. I mean, we've got, what, 2 Aura players, 2 Rox players. I mean, you would love to see everyone from your own team move up, but we got to remember, at the end of the day, it's solos.
It is solos. It's all about you and your individual performances. We will have Wave to round us out here. It's awkward for me to be in such a group now. Take a look at him, taking 21st in PS1. See if he can make it out of these preliminary groups this time around. Has a lot of experience here. I'd say one of the underdogs in this group, to be sure, but a player who needs to be respected, I think, by the other racers.
Yeah, absolutely. If we had to pick the weakest link, yeah, I think it would be Wave, right? He hasn't made the round of 16. He's trying to set that record high for his own career right now. But at the same time, it's a free-for-all with 8 racers, so you never know who's going to be the one that pushes you out of the running. It's a point-style race. We'll explain more as we go into the races. The first track is going to be over on Mine Winding Slopes. And the race is on. Try to see who gets first place for the first time to try to select that next track, as that's the advantage you get for crossing the finish line first.
Right, so winner gets to pick the track. Top 4 advance from the group, and that is basically what you guys need to know, as obviously you get more points the higher you are in the standings, as you would expect. Bottom, you will actually lose points. If you retire, you will lose a lot of points, but it hasn't happened yet here in Kartrider Drift just yet.
Yeah, and JJONG just trying to play it safe. He makes way. He doesn't want to get bumped off on that jump around the corner. So while he did hold first place for a short bit, he slows things down. Oh, and he tried to avoid the crash, but he goes right barreling down the cavern there, and JJONG now knocked all the way down to 7th place.
Yeah, several players falling back, Knock as well, taking the worst of it, and that is pretty much this racing dog for him. I don't think he'll retire, but I mean, it's in the conversation. That's how rough that exchange ended up going for him, as Percent here is taking a significant lead right now here with Cosu and Luning challenging him. Cosu, great start to this group right now if he could actually take a first place.
Yeah, I mean, Cosu, he would love to be able to try to make a name for himself back in solos. Of course, he tried to lead a squad back in Preseason 1 as well, and he's playing it very safely, but Luning finds the draft right at the end and is going to be able to overtake him. Cosu gets the draft a little bit too late after landing from the jump, and Knock should be able to still cross the finish line. We'll avoid that retire.
Yeah, 4 seconds to spare. It wasn't too bad for him. You have quite a large window, of course, in pro play. You're never really going to be that far behind. But man, Luning with that great draft there at the end, but he and Cosu really ahead of the pack. It feels bad for Cosu. He loses control at the last possible second, but still, second place is going to be 7 points picked up here for Cosu, feeling very good. So we do have, you know, at the start here, Luning taking the lead and will be able to pick the next track as JJONG recovered in 5th, will be able to pick up 3 points.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's respectable when you consider what happened to him back there.
Yeah, I mean, and the worst of it is, right, he tried to avoid it. You could see very clearly he was trying to slow down before these jumps, and he just gets bumped right into that little crack on the track. But he is able to recover. Meanwhile, the story was that Luning overtakes right at the last second and is going to get that track selection. See what his pick is here for round 2.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Everybody's keeping hands dry. Palms are sweaty here in Kart Rider Drift League.
Yeah,
you know?
they do. Yeah, but no one's eating their mom spaghetti though, right? They might have eaten their rice, they might have eaten their kimchi, but they didn't eat their mom spaghetti today, I can tell you that much. Coming to the tracks here for Kart Rider Drift. See what Luning's selection is after keeping his hands dry here for the race. You know, I start to wonder, like, do those lyrics still really reach everyone in the audience? I'm not even sure anymore generationally.
How old are we?
Yeah, we'll love to find out in the comments. But first off, we're going to round 2. It is for Zigzag Timberland.
Here we go, the track pick of Luning here for our second round. He is the leader, and once again, starting off in top 3.
Yeah, Luning just trying to make sure he can stay in contention for the podium, look for an opportunity towards the end. Spell continuing to shoot forward, and Kosi's vying for that #1 spot. Again, he actually played very aggressively against Spell right there, and Spell loses control for just a second.
Yeah, now of course trying to maintain that lead as the drafts are very hot on his heels. Spell actually trying to make a go for it. Will actually be able to block them out for now as Wave having a better start here this time around as well. Cosu, man, he is just playing safe right now, to be totally honest. It will actually cost him here.
Yeah, goes a little bit too wide there on the build, and he's allows everyone to try to catch up. Now, JJONG, this is a track where he's always kind of found an opening to be able to overtake everyone. It looks like he hit a collision once again, though, so he's back in 8th place. We'll focus now on the front of the pack. JiMin has entered the podium stages for now.
Cosu still center stage here by our observers as he is trying to fight his way back into top 4 here, but his control was lost, and Luning might be going for the back-to-back here. I mean, still in the first lap as we're about to cross that checkered flag here still. I mean, very impressive start for this player who's had such a fantastic year so far.
Oh, and a nice opening found by Wave. Now JiMin with the boost is going to be able to regain control, but Wave, he's continuing to stay in the top 3. He's trying to get the majority of points here on the round 2 in Zigzag Timberland.
Luning just uncontested here. The gap is wide enough to where it's very difficult to actually try to take an aggressive inner and look for a pass. He's almost out of draft range, or was. Now we're knocking on the door, as Luning, we're getting close to the end here. See if Nock can get one final opportunity here as we move into these final turns.
Yeah, he absolutely should, but the question is JiMin and Cosu going to allow him to do that for free as well? I mean, again, it is a free-for-all. Now, Nock, he's just trying to see if Luning will make way or not. Luning says, not at all. I intend to go into these hairpins in the first place spot.
Yeah, and he's handling those hairpins very well here, or at least the opening of them. Now we go to the major hairpin.
Oh, Spell! Yeah, he just finds that inner right as Luning tries to take the safe spins around the hairpin, and Spell, he should be able to hold on to this Luning. He's going to try to find a draft near the end, but it's only 100 meters, and Spell will be able to cross the finish line first.
Yeah, Nock, you know, in those hairpins, hard to use your nitro advantage. He had an extra nitro, but it's just not safe to actually use that there, so he's not able to push his way through. It looked like maybe on a different track you have that kind of advantage there. Maybe you actually get that final push and you could steal away the win. Won't happen this time. Will be a podium finish for him, but Spell, with that really nice aggressive inner as we entered those hairpins, saw a window, took his risk, and Luning not able to get the back-to-back. It will be also a new track record coming through for Spell here. Very impressive start, 222 on the day. And this pushes him up to second place. Cosu maintaining top 3. And we now have a pretty defined gap between our top 3 and the rest of the racers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Luning, of course, with the 1 and 2 finish in round 1 and 2, holds on to the 17 points. Meanwhile, Spell representing Songdam Rocks alongside JJONG shoots up into double digits as well. Now, JJONG, I mean, we see this guy trying to find those openings that he usually does in team matches, but you got to remember, in team matches, you at least have 3 other racers that are on your side, right, that will allow you to make way and push forward. Here, everyone's out on their own, and JJONG's just not finding the openings he does in either team or 1v1s.
Yeah, just not finding those same opportunities. I think the same to be said of Nock as well, who I think has had so far here a fairly disappointing performance. You know, normally a guy who makes those final pushes has not been happening.
Okay, well, the next track, it was selected by Spell, and it looks like we're going to a bit more of a wide track as we go to WKC Korea Circuit. And the race begins. This was Spell's choice. See if he can maintain the back-to-back first place finishes to continue a streak of selecting tracks.
Yeah, Cosu once again with a fantastic start here, up in top 3, battling it out with Nock and JJONG. Let's see if he can find those openings this time around. Liiv committing an additional nitro here, as it just feels like it's the story of Cosu against 2 other people at the beginning of these tracks every single time.
Yeah, I mean, Cosu, it looks like his agenda is try to get to first place and then at least try to maintain it, because if you don't get first, you'll still get second or third. That seems to be his agenda. Rather than trying to play this calculator method, just say, okay, let's get first, and then if I get pushed back, I'll still get enough points to try to maintain a podium. Now, JJONG, with the idea that there aren't obstacles on the map itself to hold him back anymore, he is now finally entering the podium stages in the first lap.
Yeah, Cosu could try to take an aggressive inner here. He's just going to play it safe. I mean, that's been the name of the game for this guy. He's just, like you said, he's like, yeah, I could win, but if I mess that up, I might actually fall back really hard. So I'm actually just going to play as safe as possible and just finish these races in top 3 if I can. And I mean, he's just avoiding collisions right now. As I said, a small caster curse, but he's still doing fine. As Spell will actually take that first place spot away. Luning and he are now competing. It's funny how Cosu is playing. He's the perfect racer to follow for our observers because he's got like the perfect angle to see everything.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything crazy. He's just gonna drive like he's driving a car, not breaking any laws.
Yeah, exactly. He's just following everyone and saying, okay, these guys are crazy, but I'm just following the road right now. Meanwhile, of course, some of these other players are trying to make these collisions happen, make an opening aggressively for themselves. As we look at the front of the pack, Spell still maintaining that first spot. Luning now finally catching a break, but JJONG's right on his tail.
Yeah, JJONG really trying to push this draft to his advantage here. 500 meters to go.
Yeah, he takes the wide, but with the draft, he's going to get the advantage. And now with both players with a boost, he's going to be able to continue to maintain. He even makes sure he tries to block against either Spell or Luning. And JJONG will catch a break, get the 10 points, and be able to select the next track.
As much as we could talk about Kosu's safe play, you know, he was able to maintain top 3 for a significant portion of the track, but then fell back before even the second lap down to about 5th, 6th, and then ends up finishing 7th, his first finish of the group so far. Not that it's going to push him out of contention. It's going to be just a 0 he picks up here in that 7th place spot, as we have another track record set here by JJONG at 157.422. But JJONG picks up a win here, right? Much needed. Spell, Luning, these players still up in top 3, so you can see that JJONG needed those points so badly. He's now pushed himself into top 4. Cosu on the edge of it. And you can play safe as much as you want, but I think eventually you will be overtaken by these players who are so hungry to push into those top spots because they're significantly behind. And, you know, I want to see Cosu actually try to push the limit a little bit. I want to see what he's capable of when he's taking risks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that it's not like Cosu's playing a strategic style either of that pension style or super observer mode like we used to see Nock. He's not succeeding so far yet in this group, but it's more so just like, okay, get first place as early as possible and then just kind of let Destiny take its course. And then Cosu eventually, like you said, especially in a group like this, like people will start to play aggressive, overtake you more and more. Meanwhile, here's JiMin on the screen, also not too far away from that cutoff line for the top 4 for the time being, but we still have several more tracks to go. The choice from JJONG takes us to Mine Rickety Rails.
Off we go on Mine Rickety Rails here. Wave will actually take first place here off of the start.
Looks like it's just trying to maintain that for the time being. Now this is another map where there could be some hazards happening as we enter the second cave here. You got to try to make that jump and land on the track. JJONG will be safe for it, and Spell as well in front of him.
Luning here pushing up into first place with JiMin right now competing, and this is really interesting to see how consistent Luning starts have been, as Cosu actually this time will be absent from our top 3 at the beginning of this race. Has had so many great starts in the first lap, but won't be the case this time around, as some collisions may happen as if we continue to be this densely packed here on Rickety Rails. It is a very narrow track at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're even still seeing a couple bumps on the walls here and there, and players trying to recover now on those jumps, so everyone just tries to respect each other, right? Stay their course, not making any aggressive plays just yet. You know, you can't really go for any type of straight boost or anything like that in the free-for-all, but we're still all pretty close, except for Percent, who has now fallen right at the edge of the minimap.
All right, Cosu actually here with an extra nitro as well. We'll pop that one out here and push into top 3. This is the aggressive play I wanted to see from this guy, and let's see if he can hold on to top 3 here. It's so important for him. He's sitting at 11 points on the edge of the cutoff line.
Yeah, meanwhile, JJONG, it looked like he tried to weave in and out on that straightaway right before the cave, and a couple players nearly dodging that fall off the bridge, off the Rickety Rails, and JJONG has overtaken to first place, now battling with Cosu.
And Cosu here fighting with JiMin here, looking for that first place swap. Only 200 meters to go. Looks like JiMin is going to take this one. JJONG to follow. Cosu will drop back to 4th behind Luning. But another top 4 here for Cosu, man. He's like a black taxi driver, you know. He's got his certification. Yeah. He's got the shirt that says best driver.
Yep.
Because even when he was taking those risks and actually using his nitro aggressively, he did it in such a calm, collected way, and he was not going to just pull into a hard drift into the corner or anything like that. That's not his play style. It is fun to see this guy pensioning his way, intentionally or not, here into top 4. JiMin will take that 10-point bump, and you can see he actually, with this, will push ahead of Cosu despite his top 4 finish there. So, you know, no longer safe here as Cosu. He is going to have to compete with these top players in order to keep his spot and to have his chances of moving on from the group.
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting to see that, you know, the top 4, they're distancing themselves from like the bottom 2 or 3, but at the same time, in terms of who the seeding's going to be and who actually gets that final cutoff into 4th place, it's getting closer and closer. So see if we're going to see any players start to really shoot out forward as we enter what looks like might be the second half of this group in solos. The choice is going to take us to another new track coming in Preseason 2. It is WKC Brazil Circuit. Right now, Luning leading at 27 points as we enter round 5 of the solos. This is Group D in the round of 32.
Yeah, this is a track we talked about in teams earlier, Brazil circuit. It's very wide, so very difficult to actually find angles of attack if someone has that defensive setup in first. But the early laps, you're going to learn a lot about how these players what builds they want to take, because the sky is the limit really on what you can do. You see Luning actually goes through the grass there and avoids collision, and that's how he's going to take first place away.
Yeah, of course, but if you want to go through that grass, you got to spend that nitro as well, right? So we saw players like Nock actually just taking the track, making sure they can maintain their boost gauge, because you're going to have another opportunity come lap 2.
Yeah, you're also not going to be able to build as much nitro when you go through the grass like that, as Spell will at least hold on to this lead for now. Nock with that additional nitro, making a play for this to actually cut through, and actually that was great from Nock. Actually, he is just able to slide diagonally through the entire squad and take that first place spot into his own hands.
Yeah, and that build where he just doesn't take the first shortcut is really starting to pay off. He still constantly has 2 full gauges to go, and now in lap 2, he has the choice to go through that first shortcut. Let's see if he takes it.
Yeah, really cool play here from Nock. I think kind of changing the meta on this map a little bit right now, as Percent here is going to challenge him and try to create some collision. That was risky.
Yeah, but Nock just cuts right in front of him as well, and Nock is continuing to block against everyone who's trying to overtake him as well. Spell takes a high risk, but he actually gets bumped to stay on the grass a bit longer than he wants, and Nock is still maintaining first place.
Yeah, Nock is playing this so well. JJONG trying to come up and challenge him right now, but Nock he still has that extra nitro. It's just a little bit of extra charge, but it's actually giving him enough momentum here, and I think his strategy is going to pay off.
Yeah, and he's always constantly cutting in a sharper angle onto the grass. Now JJONG finally finds an opportunity, but you have to go around the grass once more, and Nock knew the build he had in mind. He's going to take the closer track here. Spell finally overtakes him near the end. Nock tries to at least maintain second place. He will do so.
Yeah, that was really impressive. Spell will be able to ultimately take first place at the end, but I like that we framed that around Nock, because he really had his own way to play this one out. He held that extra nitro, took that initial boost, and once you have a nitro advantage and you're in first place, everything we talked about on this track kind of compounds on itself. Harder to pass, harder to make those attacks. You can see his defensive play was fantastic. He is ultimately stopped by Spell at the very end as the track narrows, and Spell has that angle he takes down the right side, but he barely wins. And it's going to be 7 points here for Nock regardless. Now, Spell actually will push himself into first place now with this win. As you can see, the line drawn between JiMin and Nock is 6 points here. Nock wishes he could have had 3 more, would have actually halved the distance between him and his opponent there. But still, second place, 7 points. Decent pickup here. He needs more, though, if he's going to qualify for the next round.
Yeah, still a little ways to go, right? I mean, Nock and Cosu tied at 15, and then they've still got JiMin ahead of both of them at 21. And, 6 points, yeah, that could flip on any given track, but the rest of it also determined, is determined by Spell or JJONG or, Luning. How quickly do they reach the 50? Because then the race might abruptly end. Well, right now, we are looking to go to the next track chosen by Spell. It will be Village Boom Hill Tunnel.
We go see how Wave has his start here, because he is having a rough time in this group, sitting at -1, has just been finishing bottom 2 most of these tracks, unfortunately, as Nock will once again be the leader here, this time much earlier than last on a 1-lap track here. Having the lead early is pretty huge.
Yeah, and we talked about it during the team match earlier today as well, but it starts to get really narrow around this section of the track. So if you keep that first place, you have a fairly good chance of maintaining it all the way to the end.
Yeah, if he can play defensively like he did on Brazil, I think this is definitely going to be an opportunity for him. But Luning, man, he is relentless.
Oh yeah, but that aggression, he pays for it a little bit, actually makes an opening for JJONG to try to catch up briefly as well.
Cosu here in 5th place, also trying to make a run for it here with that nitro, is getting closer to challenging these players. He really desperately needs a top 3 finish here, sitting at 15 points. He's not out of the running just yet, but one bad finish and he pretty much is. Yeah,
and the draft brings JJONG all the way close right on Nock's back, and he should have another opportunity. The draft on the shortcut, Nock's going to be able to block for it one more time, but JJONG should have one more opportunity after this corner.
Okay, here we go, JJONG, one last chance to try to cut through corner to corner.
Yeah, and it comes through, and he's able to maintain that acceleration thanks to the draft. after bumping Knock out of the way, and JJONG will get his second first place finish.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Knock again, just at the last possible second. Both of these tracks, he's got a lead for 90% plus, but it'll be JJONG who takes it away here at the end. Another last place finish for Liiv will drop him down to -2 in total here of points. Really unfortunate for this player. We talked about as one of our underdogs for sure, just not having his night. Will be 3 seconds behind completion. He did, of course, kind of tease us and do a little spin there at the end because he knew that there was no way he was going to pass. But 35 points for JJONG now. We're getting to potentially final 2-track territory here if we continue to see these top 3 players place in top 2 or top 3. JiMin here also pushing ahead 25-22. Cosu, you know, he basically needs a win if he's actually getting out of this group. He needs a first place finish.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, again, you're fighting against both JiMin and Knock, right? So even if you overtake, maybe even if one person finishes 8th, if the other is still around 4th or 5th, Kosu's not going to get that point differential. But right now, we will go to JJONG's next selection. He's going to take us to another difficult track. It will be Desert Ancient Aqueducts. All eyes on the top 4 right now, but we do have a couple players trying to make something happen as we enter the later tracks here in Solos Group D.
Now, there are so many hard corners on this track, as well as these, I don't want to call them roundabouts, they essentially function as corners here. These, like the aqueducts themselves, the fountains, whatever you want to call these, because this is where things actually are so risky. If you take an aggressive inner, the punish is so severe. You mess it up once and you're dropping back into 8th place, and there's just no hope for you in the race. So, you know, it's a track where I think risky players can be rewarded. You know, if that's your playstyle, like Luning, for example, it's not really going to be the track for Cosu, let's just say, because you are really going to have to take some aggressive plays. Now, this part of the track, not so much here towards the end. We'll have this little Z before that wider turn here. Luning maintaining first place right now. Spell actually back in 8th. Something happened to him. Saw him shoot back down to 8th. Not entirely sure why, but he's catching up.
Yeah, he's trying to catch right back up. Of course, a couple of these straightaways, you get a couple more cuts in, just try to regain that boost gauge. And now everyone seems to be pretty much on track. A couple collisions even on these corners. Like you mentioned, I mean, so many 90-degree turns on this track, right? That is the name pretty much of the entire track. Like you said, the aqueducts, they're simply wider versions, so they give the illusion that you can make more aggressive plays. But right now, the top 3, they're all kind of respecting their distances from each other.
Yeah, it kind of creates this like multi-corner turn where you can hold them all as one. And Luning, man, he has just handled them all so well, and he's actually bought himself a little bit more flexibility here. Once again, JJONG trying to make a play for this Knock, man. He needs that first place finish so badly. He was robbed of it twice. Maybe this 3rd time will be the charm here.
Yeah, he's gonna find a draft timing here around that zigzag, and he's trying to take the outer off the acceleration, but he cannot maintain that speed, and JJONG just boosts right past him. Can JJONG hold on to that first place? He's defending against Luning. Meanwhile, JiMin gets knocked back a little bit. Cosu, meanwhile, shoots forward ahead of both Knock and JiMin, so he's gonna start to try to close that point gap.
Yeah, really important that he's able to push his way into top 3. I mean, keeping the dream alive. It's still a dream at the moment, as JJONG will win on track selection here, playing it very well. I have to say, he gets a huge cheer from the crowd as well. That Luning also handled this track extremely well, and you know, holding first place for that long on this track of all tracks too, just really showcases his experience here. As Cosu will pick up the 5 points here, and that'll put him at 23. So he's just behind Knock and JiMin. You know, it feels like it's a race right now between Cosu, Knock, and JiMin. Spell to a certain extent as well, but like these 3 players are all vying for that top 4. Spell, I mean, there's a chance he gets eliminated, but I'm not counting on that right now with how he's been racing.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much for Spell, he would have to get 8th place, and one of JiMin and Cosu would have to, you know, shoot forward or Knock, something like that. But meanwhile, right now, JJONG, he just has to get a podium finish to really wrap up Group D here. He's only 5 points away from the 50-point benchmark. Meanwhile, Luning, if Luning gets first place, regardless of where JJONG is, that would also wrap up the solos here for Group D in the round of 32. And JJONG takes us to another one with quite a few turns. It's going to be Mind 3 Shortcuts.
Off we go on mine, 3 shortcuts. As you mentioned, William, this is very likely to be our final track here in solos. All it is a podium required here for JJONG. Also, if Luning takes first place, that will wrap it up as well. Speaking of, he's sitting in pole position right now.
Yeah, he just started to shoot forward and said, you know what, I'll wrap this up. I'm not going to rely on JJONG to finish the race here. I want to make sure I choose my own destiny. Now, JiMin, of course, one of those racers that is somewhat in trouble here for that 4th place mark, so he wants to make sure he gets a high finish, get a lot of those points to secure his own placement into the round of 16.
Yeah, competing with Spell and Knock right now. So Knock sitting at 6 right now for Spell. So right on his heels. JiMin would love to actually finish this one, get 10 points and extend that lead for another track. As JJONG actually having a bit of a rough start here, sitting back in 7th place. So the observers kind of highlighting if Luning doesn't finish this, it does seem likely actually that we are going to an additional track.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy, right? We had all these conditions and maybe none of them will be met here. Luning getting pushed out of that 1st place finish right now. I mean, this puts a little pressure on Luning himself as well if he wants to make sure that he's able to go forward as that 1st seed here from Group D.
Yeah, see about a 4th of a second lead here, 4% right now. As Luning is trying aggressively to try to pass it, but the way that Percent handled that corner was beautiful. Blocks Luning out. And he's doing it again here. Luning trying to get that draft extra push here. And man, he is so hot on the heels of Percent. It's extremely close between these two right now.
Oh, and Percent goes a little bit too sharp, gets knocked entirely out of the race. Meanwhile, Knock says, I just want another track to try to catch up. JiMin just wants to finish ahead of Knock, and while Knock will overtake JiMin at the end, that should still secure JiMin. We'll have to double check, but Luning, most importantly, gets 1st place, gets the 50 points, and that should wrap up Group D here in the round of 32.
It's really close, but I think you're right. I don't think it's a tiebreaker situation between the two of them, but it is going to be very close. We will check out those final scores before we jump into this, but Luning, man, he had such a consistent performance. I think easily the most consistent racer. Also gets track record here as well, beating Hyunsu's old record by almost a full second.
Oh, it is a
and
tiebreaker.
It is a tiebreaker. Okay,
yeah,
so
I just got to that calculation myself. I was like, oh no, it is a tiebreaker.
all right, well, this is really exciting. Unfortunately, Cosu, Percent, and Wave all eliminated here. Cosu, I think, man, the guy performed, honestly, I think better than how he did in his group in preseason 1. I think he's shown some improvements here. And I'm as an old man who's been doing video games for a long time, I'm also like always keeping a close eye on the old gamers, okay? Cosu's not that old, by the way. He's much younger than me. But you know what I mean. He's been around for a long time. He's out of the military, came back. He did not qualify, but I think a good performance for him. Very much closer than the other eliminated players. And we will have that tiebreaker race to decide whether it is going to be JiMin or Knock to advance, you know.
1v1, and it just so happens they were sitting next to each other as well, so see who's going to be able to keep that condition. But it's funny, right? We talked about how Knock tries to play that Super Observer Pension style. It didn't seem like it was working in the first couple tracks, and yet again, here he is vying for that 4th place cutoff to make it into the round of 16.
Yeah, it's crazy because JiMin has never been the ace for Liiv SANDBOX, the item ace, right? But 1v1, not something you really associate with this player. Let's see how he does, because this is a completely different skill set.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll be going back to the first track of this group. It is going to be Mine Winding Slopes. And the race begins. Let it be remembered that JiMin and Knock, JiMin got 6th place in that first track today, and Knock got 8th. So now it's really just between them 1v1, no one else to mess them up.
Yeah, it's a single lap track here, and the parts of the track where it gets really crazy, there's so many different opportunities actually to pass here. I think I almost call this an ace match, but in this tiebreaker, in this 1v1 scenario, it's such an exciting track to watch because there is that chance for some drama to occur, for someone to fall off of the track, for example. As Knock has a pretty significant lead right now, but JiMin will pass him, actually. Caster Curse coming through.
Yeah, JiMin with good timing on the drafts as well. Earlier, off the jump, he actually holds back as he gets the draft, and then he times his boost off the draft as well to try to continue. He actually gets a stop against Knock, but it's not enough to put Knock behind. Knock boosts right afterwards to maintain the momentum. JiMin cuts right on the inner line again, though.
Knock has been doing such a great job of building his nitro. He actually has a significant lead, actually, over JiMin right now, but they'll need to use that to close the gap here, maybe with a draft as we are getting, closer to the end here on the single leg track. Some hairpin turns coming through, and there's this weird U-shaped turn here. He's looking for the spin on it.
Yeah, Knock gets it clean, and JiMin isn't able to block against it. JiMin does get one more draft, and Knock, he's not going to be able to get the draft in time. JiMin, with it, he is going to avoid the rocks and barely cross the finish line first. Makes it to the round of 16. Knock will be eliminated here in the round of 32.
A little bit of a respectful fist bump shared here as well. It was a great race, and JiMin, I mean, it looked for a moment like things were dangerous for him. Knock had control, had that additional nitro, but ultimately, one extra collision there, and JiMin pushes past him and then is able to maintain his composure through the harder part of the track there at the end and the final jump, and will be able to take it out. So JiMin will be advancing from the group, will be able to have that opportunity in double elimination. Of course, we'll be seeing a lot more of Knock in the rest of this preseason for Team League. So, it's unfortunate to lose here, but it is a preseason, and it's not the end of his KDL.
Yeah, definitely not. Meanwhile, I mean, good news for Seongnam Rocks, right? Both of their players here in Group D will be moving on to the round of 16. Aura will still send Luning up from this group specifically into the round of 16. And then, of course, JiMin from Liiv SANDBOX. And I gotta say, I mean, JiMin's awareness in that 1v1 situation of when to time his drafts, right, and his boost to really chain together with that, understanding that he still had another chance with the last draft, even after the spin turn from Knock. It starts to show a lot more promise as he has now become that hybrid player for SANDBOX, right?
Yeah.
He's no longer the item ace.
Exactly. I feel like JiMin has shown us there's nothing he can't do, Like, he can win a 1v1 extremely well. He will play well in item. He will actually be a great team player, whether he's the front runner or he's going to be someone who's doing a little bit more defensive and sweeping. He's just one of our kind of jackknife type players. He can literally do anything, it feels like. So excited to see him advance because he's an exciting player to follow through that double elimination stage because he's just such a unique player. For Wave here, a little bit of an unfortunate experience, I'd say, going out with -2 and just not really having any top placings in the group. But I think beyond that, like, the -2 doesn't really do justice how some of his starts were really good. It doesn't actually showcase, like, some of his lap ones were very competitive and actually, held first even once or twice for a moment. But ultimately just not consistent enough here. And it was kind of the group we expected, right? Really 6 racers in contention for a majority of the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, a very tough group, right? The other groups, we all kind of said, okay, like, there's 4 favorites and then maybe like 1 or 2 players that could contend for 4th place. And this was like, okay, well, there's 6 racers that could all make it through. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, even JJONG, despite the record he's had in KRPL and the ace match streak that he's held so far in preseason, he wasn't the 1st place seed, right? Going up to the round of 16, it's Luning. So that just shows how tough this group was.
Yeah, and that's with picking up multiple 1st place finishes as well. It's a banger of a group, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going to be seated now moving into the round of 16 and going into the double elimination portion.
Of course.
It's going to be, what groups we get could be quite exciting.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at players like Neil, for example, who was so close to taking preseason 1, and you have Hero, right, who's a really strong player right now in preseason 2. Where they end up meeting up against players like Luning, like Hero, Luning, and Neil in the same group, that could be a thing. That could happen.
Yeah, I mean, a crazy group, especially with the roster pool we have right now in solos. Of course, still the defending champions from solos as well. And Cool over on KWANGDONG I mean, World, he got 3rd place last preseason rather as well. So it's a pretty stacked round of 16. And like you mentioned, Wolf, the most important thing is it's double elimination from here on out. So we're not going to have to say goodbye to any players just yet. We get to watch them a couple more times.
Yeah, for sure. And, if you just tuned in, we actually have one more team match after this, so we're not actually about to close. I know normally we actually end with solos, but as you guys could see here, Liiv SANDBOX versus Seraphic, we got that on the docket.
Yeah, that's going to be the next team match, ladies and gentlemen. We will take a quick break to set up for that one, and when we come back, it's the team match between Liiv SANDBOX and Seraphic. We'll see you soon.
바로 박수와 함께 시작합니다.
잘 들리지? 누구 콧바람이야?
좋은데? 주호 같은데? 나야. 나 숨 안 쉬고 있어. 숨을 안 쉬고 있어?
나 웃겨 들리는데 숨소리가.
나도. 애초에 나도 들리는 거.
나만 안 들림.
너네. 맨날 개인전하고 바로 집에 가는.
그니까. 난 개인전 해본 적 없는데.
그래 나 스피드 가면 말 못하니까 태민이가 멘탈 케어 잘 해주고 오늘 마지막 경기 아니고 첫 경기니까 마음 편하게 하고
광동 프리스는 여러 가지 실험을 했습니다. 차라리 미들 가는 선수가 그 부스터 가속을 이용해서 미들을 휘저어주는 게 더 나을 수도 있다. 이런 판단도 또 하는 것 같아요.
막아주네.
또 이렇게 상대를 좀 공략해주기 위한 포지션 가고 있네요.
오케이. 이제 못 들어?
그러니까 이렇게 승이 만들어졌을 때 뒤쪽에서는 활개를 칠 거고 아니 언제 올라와?
이거 아까 팔이 아니었어요?
그냥 놀게 뒤에서. 그냥 뻑백하고 싶어.
스피 왜 이래요? 스피 어디까지 할 거예요?
마지막
어디까지 할 거예요?
점까지도 한번 더 보고 있는
여기
것
들어간 거
같은데요.
보고 성빈 월드쿨이에요. 그리고
6등이야. 나 원래 2등만 할라 했는데. 유창은 퍼펙트 했어야지 뭐해. 내절 좀 많이 했어. 나이스. 나 팔이 맞아. 그냥 더 나이스. 나이스. 힘이 맞아. 뒤로 형 계속 가. 깜짝이야. 나 빠먹었다. 날개 있고. 태원이 사이드 한 번. 사이드. 먼저.
맞지 말기
태원이 맞지
2등
마.
안물
나 필드.
태원이
거리하자.
할 생각
거리할게.
힘이 덜게.
된다.
하나에서.
된다 3등.
그냥
내 팀몰이야. 나 미사일.
나 승민이가 빨게.
해지 있고. 1파 줬어. 선. 1파 들어왔어. 가봐. 거리 돼. 너네 거리해.
형 가.
내가 갈게
아 터줘.
내가 서줄게. 내가 서줄게.
역전이 안 되거든요. 여기.
바리케이드로도 안 될 것 같거든요. 그냥 막
애결 갑니다.
나이스.
나이스. 와, 애결 가자. 발이 안 맞으면 져야지. 잘한다.
대결 빌리지 우밀 터널이 나왔고요.
오케이, 다 속았다. 다 속았다.
나는 조금 한 70%?
뭐가 하고 싶다는 거야 안 하고 싶다는 거야 내가 할게 확실하게 하고 싶은 거야 건아? 오케이 그럼 믿어주자
오히려 뒤쪽에서 과감하게 승부를 걸 수 있다라는 장점이 있기 때문에 근데 썸머가 회복이 나쁘지가 않아요.
그렇죠. 이 빌드를 타면 그 다음부터 드랩거리로 접근할 수 있죠.
안 돼요 썸머.
순식간에 왔습니다. 좋아하는 용기가 한번 걸렸는데 이러면 월드 실수를 약간 바랄 수 없는 상황인데 마지막에 피날레는 월드.
잘 들려?
야 인파 있어 인파.
포기 있어. 인파 있어. 천사 있어. 스마트 패고요.
여기 애들 소리 좀 전체적으로 올려주세요 다 하고 있어봐 더 계속 얘기해봐 그만해도 돼
현수야. 너 화면 봐도 된다는 거지?
친하지 않게 봐. 너의 그 시선이 느껴지면 안 돼, 나한테.
시선이 느껴지면 안 돼? 오케이.
연습해봐. 쳐다보는 연습, 그래도.
오케이. 야 여기 쳐다보는 연습을 하자 그럼. 야, 지금 느껴져?
안 느껴져.
안 느껴져?
이렇게 다 말해버리고 보면 어떡해.
월드 시합 병마 연기 되겠습니다. 지금부터 달려보시죠. 이라고 거짓말을 해버렸어요. 지금 달리지 않을 거예요.
뭐야, 이거?
진짜 고장났나 본데? 마이크가 켜져 있대 아니 이거 왜 켜져 있는 거야 이거
너 달릴 때 5.5 화면에 너 목소리 나오는 거야.
야 큰일 날 뻔했네 이거
이 트랙 같은 경우에는 중반부에 힙싸움을 해야 되는 필연적인 구간이 있기 때문에 그 부분을 버텨낼 수 있는 팀이 이 트랙을 가져가게 되겠습니다.
진짜 뚫을게 미안
이거 살짝 아프다.
우리가 뚫어볼게
괜찮아?
우리 살면서 하자 돼
오케이.
안전하게
딜콜레이션 좋겠다.
일단 뭐라 병
서브라서 18이야. 뒤로 하겠다.
먼저 봐줄게
18이야, 선배. 8등 고정이야, 7등 모르겠어. 18 고정이야. 18 고정이네.
고정 아니야 고정 아니야
어떡해? 나못 치다. 나 3등 할 수 있어. 오케이, 3등 해봐.
나 8이야 8
니리 3위 할 수 있어요. 명수
트랩
들어옵니다.
나이스.
아니 뭐냐고
괜찮아.
아, 나 잘했는데 우리 앞에.
까비.
미안.
선수들이 자석을 모으고 마지막에 천사를 모으는데 좀 집중을 했었는데 최근에는 완전 다릅니다.
천천히 해봐.
1파 줄게 1파. 오케이 같이 챙겨나온다. 네. 1파 들려. 천천히. 나 미사일.
버리는?
공진 대기.
발이 뛰었어.
하나. 해 뜬다고 생각해.
이거 닫아?
아, 누나 쳐줄게.
경계 투번이야 나.
하나 더 쳐줄게.
상처 저
나 끝까지 가온다 이거.
뺐어.
나 부자리 받았다. 나 스위치 하나 타볼게. 앞에 와줘.
끌려가고 있다는 건 약간 이제 센세이션에게는 좋은 소식은 아닌데 템을 모으고 있어요.
ting해서 와봐.
나 더블 먹고 갈게 더블. 미들 사이드 미들.
쳐.
준비 주고. 천사 뺐어.
하자. 나이스. 마지막에 해지 불러야겠다. 경계 콜해줘.
봐봐.
미사일.
빼면 주고. 뺐어. 그래 뺐다.
지금 따서?
대기.
포도에서 하자.
지금.
떼줘.
나 타.
하나 더 있었네. 아이고.
나 팔이야. 아 팔이 못 파나.
이거지.
두 번.
퇴근. 월드 뉴욕 대즈 중.
일이 만납니다. 굉장히 재밌는 승부 될 것
그리고 뭐
같습니다.
다른 약간 실수가 있었고
자 거의 다 왔습니다. 힐이 이렇게 자연스럽게 붙어버렸습니다.
점프하는 직선 구간에서 드랩을 받기 위해서 약간 조절을 했던 닐인데 일단 그래도 붙는 데까지는
딜이
성공하죠.
좀 갈렸어요. 이러면은 딜이 좀 과감하게 한번 가볼 수 있나요?
뚫어내는 완전히 이거 소중히 어떤 타이밍 지금 일단 구성이 약간 다른데 여기서
Welcome back, everyone. As promised, we still have another team match left for the night. We just finished Group D of the round of 32 in solos, and now we return to team matches. And just to explain why we have this change of order, it is because a couple of the players on the sandbox are still not feeling well, so they will have to play remotely. So to make sure that we can go through smoothly for the night, we have reserved this match for last.
That's right. So some of the players will be playing online. The remaining players here offline in the studio, as you can see. There's Neil walking in, and we'll have the Liiv Sandbox roster here playing in front of the audience regardless. I'll give a bow to the crowd. And, you know, we'll see how they perform tonight because some of those players are ill. They are playing from home. They're well enough to play, but hopefully it doesn't impact their gameplay too much because, and everyone who's been sick knows, sometimes you're just not at your best when you're not feeling well.
Yeah, I mean, especially, you know, in a game like Kart Rider Drift where you just have to have like more than 100% focus for those, you know, 90 seconds, 120 seconds. I mean, you know, just losing your focus for 1 second can make the difference between finishing first, you know, getting that podium finish, making sure your team crosses that finish line ahead or not. Now, their opponents are not going to be a full force team that Liiv Sandbox should be afraid of. One of our newer teams, right, and Seraphic, an amateur team, and some names that we are familiar with, but of course some newer ones as well.
Yeah, we'll see how they perform tonight because it is going to be a really tough one. I think illness aside, Liiv Sandbox Red are one of our strongest teams and our finalists from Preseason 1. So, yeah, the roster has changed, but they've also replaced those players with very strong players too. So, I'm looking forward to seeing if they can put up a challenge because it's really important for Seraphic to take some wins here early on. You can see Hyunsu will be playing remotely. Everyone else is here.
Nah, Hyunsu just knows how to stand that still, man. Like, he doesn't even have to blink. That's why he's so good at Kart Rider. He doesn't blink.
He also he communicates with telepathy. That's why he's not wearing a headset. He's able to hear the game as well without putting anything in his ears. He doesn't need to hear it. He just feels the game.
Exactly. He feels it. He is the game. And of course, Liiv SANDBOX talking about how the item meta is a little hard, and I can see why they see that, right? This was one of those teams that, as a pro team, seemed to have a real good grasp on item mode in Preseason 1, and not so much yet here in Preseason 2.
Yeah. That's why, you know, in the previous series, I was saying that it was our strongest two teams because Liiv SANDBOX haven't quite gotten that grasp just yet of item. I think they could definitely bounce back. It's just going to be a matter of time. And trying to make a new era here. This squad, Seraphic, showing the potential of their first win in the item match. See if they can do it again here. It's a good matchup considering that Liiv SANDBOX seems to be a little bit weak at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Liiv SANDBOX, just like GWANGDONG actually in their first two matches, had to go to the ace match to eke out the win. Just giving a nice little cheer to SANDBOX, right, everyone? Let's stay healthy, right? Get well soon. Of course, on the side of SANDBOX, we had Byung-Soo and then now Hyunsu, who is still a little bit ill, so he will be playing remotely, like we said. And we gotta, we might have to mention this, depending on how the results finish, because Hyunsu's also the captain, right, of this squad now. So see if this affects the team morale at all.
Definitely could become quite massive, as we will have Japan Circuit, one of our least seen tracks this season, banned away. Village Boom Hill Tunnel, and then Construction Chaos and Extreme Stadium there banned by Seraphic. We're starting things off on Zigzag Timberland, as Liiv SANDBOX do have speed priority here. Terracotta Twister and Zigzag are pretty much the staple tracks here in KDL, so Liiv SANDBOX just sticking with what's standard, knowing they're the favorites tonight. We'll see New York Rally. I always feel like Liiv SANDBOX is fantastic on New York Rally, and teams just keep picking it into them. I'm a little bit disappointed. I actually almost feel like it's a track you should ban. Like, do you really want to ban Zigzag or Terracotta Twister? No, I mean, those tracks are tales as old as time, but New York Rally, not 100% on board with this pick here from Seraphic.
Yeah, the New York Rally does throw me off a little bit as well. I do agree. I mean, again, you're going up against SANDBOX, so no matter which track you pick, it's not going to feel great. However, they've continued to show their mastery at it, so we'll see what Seraphic's got prepared. But for now, we will be going into Liiv SANDBOX's first choice. In round one, it will be Forest Zigzag Timberland. And the race begins, speed mode between the two teams, and we should note again, because we have a player on SANDBOX having to play remotely due to health, we are playing on the live server. That's why you see their tags in their name, as we do see right now.
And some stuff like track records may not appear immediately, but they will, of course, be still recorded as this is an official match. Minchik taking the lead here, but he is flanked by three Liiv SANDBOX members, Neil, JiMin, and Byung-Soo. So see if he can actually hold on to that, as Scarlet and Promise are really lagging quite behind. As Mari will actually take an aggressive inner here and push up to fourth. So trying to keep it competitive here, but it's really a 1-2 right now that Liiv SANDBOX have on lock.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hyunsu holding on to that first place, so it looks like he's still feeling in tip-top condition for the race at the time being. Now, like you mentioned, Seraphic, sure, they had a couple moments where they shoot forward, but at the end of the day, the idea is they can't break through the entire ranks of SANDBOX.
Yeah, Hyunsu here trying to block Scarlet out, and I mean, he is breaking through, and he has taken first place, but he is all alone. Mari and Promise, just moved up a place as JiMin falls back, but I mean, beyond that, this is just Liiv SANDBOX's track, man. Right now, we're going to cross this checkered flag and move to the second lap, but 1-2 is well and truly in control here of Liiv SANDBOX. Scarlet tries to just take this straight push here to get past, but they'll match him. And I mean, it's one man against them all right now.
Yeah. He had to dump like every boost he had, right, just to keep up, but that means you all reset to square one, and Liiv SANDBOX will be able to keep that 1-2 position. Now, Promise finally shoots forward to try to provide some support, but the problem is Byung-Soo and Neil are starting to really tear ahead, and they're not in range even for a real quick draft near the end here.
Yeah, Promise, he's just struggling to stay in draft range right now, as, if there is a pass here, it's possible for Seraphic to take this win, but I mean, this is just too big of a gap right now. It's kind of a rare 1-2 lead. Something like the likes of which you only really see from Aura when they're playing against weaker teams, just to have this much of a huge gap. And Promise flanked by Hyunsu here, always causing problems for him while he's trying to take his aggressive inners. He did move ahead, but ultimately it's just watching him try to take one of these places away, but ultimately it won't matter. 13 points behind.
Yeah, the draft not even kicking off here in the last couple of hairpins, and it's just going to be a clean 1-2 finish. Seraphic not able to escape the 7th and 8th place either, so the point differential just too great as SANDBOX puts the nail in the coffin, takes that round 1 with ease.
I mean, the good news is Promise played very well, and like if the rest of the team had actually been playing as well as he did, then maybe that could have actually been considered a competitive race, even with the gap between Neil and Hyunsu there and Promise himself. He was able to actually stay up there. Oftentimes when you're 1 man against 3 basically there, you end up getting collided and someone will actually force you into the wall, you lose control, and then you see like a 1, 2, 3, 4, one of those rare, like we absolutely dominated and crushed you finishes, but he did maintain his composure, all things considered.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also got to remember, right, Seraphic won the coin toss. They actually took item priority. So they have this understanding of like, okay, speed mode, we'll do our best, but like this is probably where SANDBOX is going to win. We got to look for our opportunities over in item mode. So I don't think they'll be beating themselves too hard for that round 1. Now, the real question is, like you said, Wolf, they chose New York Rally against SANDBOX. What do they have prepared?
Yeah, that's a real question we have to ask here is, I associate this track with the SANDBOX and with Neil in particular. He's just done so well on it in the past. So,
okay, so they make the little acronym and they're saying that Seraphic is going to win 6 rounds to 1. So far, that can still happen.
Yeah.
Okay, they've only given up the first track.
There you go.
So,
I love it. This is a fan here telling Byung-Soo to not be sick and to be healthy. He was sick. It looks like he's still maybe a little bit sick, but has mostly recovered. It's now Hyunsu that is the one who's the most ill.
Yeah, just has to stay back at the team house, it looks like. But we will be going right into round 2 in speed mode between Liiv, SANDBOX, and Seraphic. This is Seraphic's pick. Can they make an upset happen over on World Tour New York Rally?
Off we go here, the track pick here of Seraphic. So far, a great start for Liiv SANDBOX here. Scarlet, though, he and Minchik are actually going to try to push the left side here to get the closer inner. Won't really end up pushing them into those top 2 spots, but a nice build nonetheless.
Yeah, and you know, there are a couple more opportunities here and no one's fallen too far behind just yet, so we'll still have to wait and see. However, now you have to break through the defense of SANDBOX, right? We got to remember, again, you're not just racing on your own. You got to be able to try to maneuver around your opponent. So eyes on Byung-Soo as well, as he's not used to having to play that sweeping role.
Yeah, actually a big clump up in collision there with the wall, that curve there, actually really going to give a little bit more breathing room here to Hyunsu and JiMin, but it also means Neil and Byung-Soo falling pretty far behind. So I think now the numbers advantage definitely going to Seraphic here, but they will have to crack these top 2. And so far, they just have not been able to do so.
Yeah, and Promise just trying to stay on the tail of JiMin. Meanwhile, Scarlet and Minchik, they're going to have to try to regain some of their boosts to try to catch up. Scarlet now in position to assist, and Promise is going to try to find that opening. He barely cuts ahead of JiMin, but look at Neil. He has caught up to the rest of the pack.
Neil always makes these late runs on this track every single time, like clockwork, and this is going to be no exception here. Moving up to top 3 right now. Liiv SANDBOX having all 3 of these spots, and Mari and Promise, he's just colliding with him. That was such a sick attack.
Oh my gosh, Neil is now the sweeper for Liiv SANDBOX. JiMin and Hyunsu, there is no one to stop him. I mean, you saw around those last couple corners, we even saw a little bit of fun there from Hyunsu trying to block off JiMin. That's how confident they were. And Neil actually slows down on one of the corners and then bumps Mari off of those stairs near the end. I mean, what a play.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, he's just a multifaceted guy, man, and he gets in there, pushes them away after making a late run. He had a pretty rough start to the track, but he's just so good at catching up on this one. He knows so many different ways to pass and builds to actually push through the chaos. And I think the defense was fairly weak here on the side of Seraphic. They had a lot of members up in top 5, but weren't able to block for Neil. Because he's just like, all right, I'm going up into the top 3. None of you guys can stop me. And even though it was a 1-2 finish, the fact that he got there made it so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we even saw it in that, ace match in their very first match against Sensation with Ho-Jun, right, where he falls quite far behind and then he starts to really aggressively cut to gain more boost, and then he finds the right timing on the last draft to overtake him. Just things like that, the understanding right here, right? So here, he slows down a bit to just stop the entire clump, avoid the collision, and then bumps Mari out, maintains his own course, blocks Promise for a little bit, and that just buys so much time for the rest of his teammates to be able to shoot forward and secure the 1-2.
The way in which he both attacked specifically the right moment where you can actually push him then onto the high ground where the recovery is almost impossible, while then instantly returning to where he was and blocking Promise at the same time. He did like 7 things at once.
Yeah, absolutely talented player over on Liiv SANDBOX. See if they can continue it in round 3 on their choice of World Tour Terracotta Twister. And Liiv SANDBOX trying to close out the speed mode with a clean 3-0 as they start with the lead once again here on Terracotta.
Yeah, Mari was keeping it competitive for a second there, but now, oh man, this is disastrous. Promise bopped back to 8th, and it's a top 3 here for the side of Liiv SANDBOX. I mean, it's a 2-lap track, so Promise will probably still be relevant in this track later, but having this extra advantage when you already have this 1-2 lead is... It's looking like we might be seeing that 3-0 that you were just referencing if something doesn't change here. I don't want to call it early, but the advantages are so immense.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very likely, right? Scarlet now also near the back as Byung-Soo tries to catch up with the rest of the team, and Seraphic, they're starting to get really antsy, even though just on the first lap, we see them trying to make these aggressive turns inside, and they fall to the wayside. Currently a 1-2-3-4 lead here for Liiv SANDBOX.
It is so insanely rare. We've only seen it a few times here in KDL preseasons to actually have the top 4 finish, and it's usually with Liiv SANDBOX, funny as it is. Now Byung-Soo will drop back to 6 here, but he is just trying to create a ton of disruption. This is intentional. He is playing sweeper here, and then still was able to make his way into top 4. He's just running circles around all of the Seraphic members here right now.
Oh, yeah, and look at this. Just on so many of these corners, Byung-Soo, he knows that he just has to create disruption, so he feels comfortable going for those straight boosts right on the corner. He doesn't turn. He just wants to knock Seraphic so that they don't maintain their speed. Even there, he's just trying to block them off. Sure, he's not going to be able to recover, but he's bought so much time. Look how far ahead Liiv SANDBOX is.
I mean, it's a massive distance. This is what the observers are highlighting. I mean, over 100 meters here between 4th and 3rd is just, it's unrecoverable, and Liiv SANDBOX are just going to take it 3-0. Nothing to see here. Clean gameplay, even spinning there, is a little bit of showboating. But Byung-Soo, what he's doing in these moments, this is why Pro Kart Rider is so exciting, right? You make one mistake, you fall behind like that, Byung-Soo could just warp the entire track. He's like, we're no longer racing on Terracotta Twister. You guys are racing on, I'm blocking every single opportunity that you are ever going to have to try to catch up, try to go in and look for some aggressive nitros, there are some nitro builds, some aggressive inners. He's just like, no, you can't take that inner. You can't nitro here. You're going to collide into me, then collide into the wall. You have no options anymore. And unfortunately, because Seraphic is just not a strong enough team to contest with him, normally someone like him could do that for only a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But he was able to hold it for almost an entire lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the scariest part is that if you fall so far behind that you have one of your teammates locked in 8th place, you know that the enemy team now has a player who can say, I have nothing to lose, right? Because worst case, I'm still 7th place. And if my team is holding 1-2, then we win automatically. So a rough spot for Seraphic, but here we go. We are getting ready for item mode. And of course, Delta will be coming in place of Neil as that new item ace here for Liiv SANDBOX. And my curiosity goes over to Seraphic, who chose item priority.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they are going to do with it, as we'll, of course, have Snoopy, the item ace, coming in here for Mari. And I wonder if the new item meta is just going to create problems here for Liiv SANDBOX in this series, but based on the confidence we saw, and you pointed it out in that 3rd track, like getting a little bit jittery almost, Seraphic there, the nerves perhaps getting to them. I wonder if they will be able to stick to the plan here. I hope so, because I still want to see a good series here. But man, Liiv SANDBOX might just be on a whole separate level, another tier
Yeah, I mean, now they did, you know, Seraphic did get that item mode win against GWANGDONGFREECS in their last match, and that's the confidence they're trying to continue here. They actually start things off on the same exact track. It is going to be Desert Sphinx's Riddle. Then we go to Glacier Polar Half Pipe, London Night, Magma Cavern, and last, if we go all the way to round 5, it will be Seraphic's last choice, Village Town Hall.
And if you don't like the new item meta, I think definitely the track you want to get rid of is Shark's Wake. So I'm glad that Liiv SANDBOX is kind of on the same page as us. We were talking about that track in the previous team series. It is just a kind of spammy track. You're always fighting for tempo. Liiv SANDBOX was so good at the timings and actually hard finishing with like Magnet Rush, and JiMin was so fantastic at actually closing those out in the old meta, but it's a new meta now. So we'll see what they do on Polar Half Pipe, for example, which they've historically been very good on at Magma Cavern, their track picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Polar Half Pipe, that was one of the tracks that Seraphic actually banned out against KWANGDONGFREECS in the last matchup, so perhaps Liiv SANDBOX trying to find an opening there in their first selection. Seraphic, can they bring us to another ace match? Because that would be still quite an accomplishment if they can take ace matches for both KWANGDONGFREECS and Liiv SANDBOX. We'll see if it begins here in round 1 of item mode on Desert Sphinx's Riddle. And the race begins. Liiv SANDBOX currently leading 1-0 with the speed mode win.
Yeah, and let's see how this one plays out. Sphinx's Riddle, pretty wide, right? And it's a track where, you know, item attacks and that sort of tempo-based advantage we're talking about can't come into play. Here's one of those narrow parts next to the coffins. And so far, JiMin in the lead. Such an experienced item player here. Will block that first shot, but ultimately the second one comes through. He's holding on to 2 UFOs right now. We'll probably cycle one of those out, or sorry, EMPs.
Yeah, should be able to just cycle one out for free. I mean, that, while very useful now that it can block for magnets as well, not something that you want to hold on one person, right, as a double. Maybe someone else, if they get another one, you can hold 2 for the entire team.
So Byungsu and Dalda here holding on to magnets. One is used there by Dalda, and now they have some nitros here, so trying to make an aggressive push, but they're getting caught by all these attacks here for this from the Seraphic members.
Yeah, and we saw this in the earlier team match tonight, Wolf, but, you know, you can't really rely on definitely getting those defensive items, right? So just trying to pile on and say, okay, let's go for the perfect build, personal arsenal for lap 3, doesn't seem to work out anymore here pre-season 2, as Minsic's having a rough time here in lap 2.
Yeah, he was up at the front. Now he is almost certainly going to be finishing in last if something doesn't change here, unfortunately for him. No super OP items, you know, picked up no lightnings here, no, I mean, besides Dalda, he has got the 1 angel here, so neither team having a huge item advantage for that final push. I think it is just going to come down to timings here and that final push and what the attacks are going to hit. And in the numbers game, Liiv SANDBOX are leading there. They have 3 out of the 4 in top 4 right now. So this is looking very good for them right now, unless some of those big items come through.
Yeah, they've got double angel as well, and none on the side of Seraphic. I mean, right now you even have a boost over for Byungsu. Liiv SANDBOX, they definitely have the selection they want to secure someone to cross that finish line first.
Byungsu can push his angel and then boost across the finish line here. Look at the edge taken right now for Byungsu as well. Doesn't have to use it to avoid that water bomb coming through. No wisps targeting him. He's in a very comfortable spot here. If no one can attack him, EMP gonna hit him, but he still has a pretty big lead.
Yeah, the boost should still be able to save him. Meanwhile, Dalda's got another one of his own as well, but another UFO is going to tie him up, and Snoopy, he gets hit by the Wisp, and the Angel comes in strong for Liiv SANDBOX as they're able to secure one of their players to cross the finish line first. It will be JiMin, who brings round 1 for SANDBOX.
Yeah, even with that UFO coming through, it looked like Liiv SANDBOX had full control at all moments, and then when you see Snoopy make for that final push, he's just instantly targeted by the Wisp. They make sure that he specifically is shut down, and then they cross the finish line first. So having the right items set up, but also reacting very quickly there to make sure to snipe Snoopy as he's trying to move across the line. JiMin will actually be the one to do it here. The old item ace for Liiv SANDBOX coming up in a big way. And this is not the start you're looking for, unfortunately, for Seraphic.
Yeah, I mean, this was your selection. You chose item priority, and you're going down 0-1. Not where you want to be, but obviously credit to Liiv SANDBOX, right? You not only had the double angel, so you could cycle one early, you had 2 players with boost, and then at the end of the day, JiMin was still close by with the tempo as well to cross the finish line first. So we'll continue to see how the meta develops, of course, even just within this one match, because I think Seraphic probably doesn't feel too good about how that would finish.
No, I don't think so. Sphinx's Riddle, you know, it's one of those tracks where anything could happen, but it just went about as stock standard as you could expect. And next track, of course, is going to be Liiv SANDBOX's pick. As we move into this, we're going to watch a replay of this final moment. It was a magnet play here from Snoopy, and with all the chaos going through, he timed it really well, but it's just instantly whisked.
Yeah, and the barricade as well. I mean, Cosu targets the Wisp, and then the barricade, as we saw, I think it was Promise just now trying to overtake at the last second as well. So unfortunate for Seraphic. I mean, they had their own idea as well, right? And it wasn't one-dimensional. However, there were just a couple more options for Liiv SANDBOX, as we see more fans just now cheering for Cosu's speedy recovery. Again, of course, he feels well enough to be in the studio today, though.
Yeah, that's good to see. Masked up and making sure that you know, whatever he did have, if he still has it, isn't going to be spread. And I think we, you know, I can just tell you guys, we had a quick client for restart for our observers, and everyone's getting back to the lobby. We're moving into Glacier Polar Half Pipe, and that's a track that I think the old style of item mode's still relevant here, because you can go onto that higher track at the end and use a timing to actually then avoid all of that chaos if you're well prepared on it, as JiMin has showed us in the past. We did get the update that there is a very minor audio issue that's being resolved right now, so that is why we are actually waiting, and that's why we had that restart.
Yeah, and this fan saying, "Promise, if you lose, let's go back to military service with me." And it's I've never heard any Korean male saying they want to go back to mandatory military service. Not even as a
joke.
Yeah, like that is a threat right there. That's not a. I don't know if that's really encouragement or really more so a threat. But
I'm like, does that guy have a career in the military, or what's going on? I'm not trusting.
Well, we'll see if it works for Promise. Of course, the Seraphic looking to catch back up here in item mode, try to bring us to another ace match, which we've had quite a few at the start of Preseason 2 already.
So to give you guys, you know, a little bit more context here, we of course normally have local audio that the players use that's not tethered to any like audio programs or anything like that. It's just actually wired in. But because we have players playing remotely, Cosu in this case, he has to then make sure that he can communicate with these players and then also make sure the local connection is working. So just trying to make sure that connection is solid, because especially in item mode of all tracks or of all types, having that communication is so important. But it looks like everything is ready to go.
Yeah, as it often does. Got resolved pretty quickly, and we'll be going right into round number 2 of item mode. It will be over on Glacier Polar Half Pipe.
Off we go here for round 2. Some Dow enjoyers here on the side of the SANDBOX. As we move forward here, JiMin gonna pick up an early EMP. Notice he takes the outer part of the track here to avoid that AoE. And so far, so good, picking up a big lead. To say that may have a little bit caster curse as he has picked up. This is the higher track I was talking about. You can see that on Glacier, or Polar Half Pipe here, you have this higher place where you can go in. If the lower players try to target you, it's much more difficult to hit you and disrupt you. And there's a second one, of course, towards the end of the laps. And see it, first lap is going to finish off here with Dalda in the lead.
Yeah, he's got a boost and a shield as well, so he could continue taking that high road as well. Try to stay out of harm's way, maybe set up for someone to magnet onto him on the last lap to go onto the high road together. But we've actually had quite a few crazy attacks in the first lap where we've really widened the gap between 1 and 2 of the rest.
Snoopy, man, that attack there, plus the item box, man, Snoopy just lost a ton of momentum. Considering how ahead Dalda is, he actually got hit by the banana, then the item was denied. So because of the banana stun, like while he's slipping, he couldn't actually switch to the other box. So he's denied the item. The timing of that from Dalda is massive. His lead is almost difficult to quantify right now. He's this entire turn worth of distance ahead of Minchik right now.
Yeah, and he's got double shield and an angel on JiMin as well. So SANDBOX, they have everything ready to go. The shield just being used to block out yet another rocket coming in from behind. I mean, full 4 seconds ahead.
Now JiMin can actually create some disruption here as well. He's going to use the magnet to pull back, and they could continually target Promise and Snoopy, who can't even really get into range for attacks here. They need a UFO.
Yeah, the rocket into the water bomb as well. The Angel being used to protect Liiv SANDBOX.
Look at this.
Yeah,
I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, just making sure that he doesn't fall off on the jumps or anything like that. Now, Seraphic, they have gone on to the top side. The lightning coming in slows him down. Scarlet does have a boost. Can he stay ahead? He's got to avoid that barricade.
Yeah, I mean, we're already showing the 500 meters here as Scarlet pushes ahead right now, and they do have the Angel on him. The lightning not going to make an impact, and Seraphic will take this one despite Dalda's massive early lead. He's not able to hold on to it for very long. We have seen that this strategy isn't working as much as it used to on the old patch, where you actually start to maintain that advantage and keep pushing super hard, but he had it for so long that it looked like maybe he was actually going to make it happen here, but will not.
Yeah, it did look a little scary. I mean, I think if Dalda was able to maybe get through, maybe get one more boost, get on the high ground, maybe he keeps that despite the lightnings and things like that. But Seraphic, they're able to force out the early Angels over on the side of Liiv SANDBOX. They keep one for themselves, and they will be able to finish in first place. Now, tying things up 1-1 here in item mode.
Yeah, Seraphic fan there. They have tied us up, as you say, and you know, that was a pretty interesting strategy we saw there from Dalda. I think based on the items he had, it felt like it wasn't what they had planned for Polar Halfpipe, but they were like, well, we have this opportunity. Dalda, when he hit that banana as well, his lead was so massive. They're like, all right, we're just going to run with this and try to get tempo advantages. Didn't ultimately work out. That feels bad for Liiv SANDBOX too, because that was their track pick that they ended up falling across the, or stumbling across nearly the finish line there. And we'll see what happens as we move into London Night, because this is one where things get pretty crazy. Like, it's a high variance track. We talked about this earlier. Sometimes the better team doesn't always take the win here, because it can still be, like we talked about before, somewhat timing based on how you cross that finish line.
Yeah, I mean, especially because towards the end of the lap, right, you've got the little jump over the Ferris wheel, and then you've got a sharp corner to try to cross it into the finish line. So, especially now that Magnet Boost isn't as dominant anymore, there's a lot of options. You can Magnet try to swing around the last corner, you could boost, you could try to really stop them and chain them as they're jumping over the Ferris wheel. There are a lot of options, and it really comes down to, again, starting to calculate what is our arsenal, you know, in the middle of lap 2. Do we start to set up for tempo plays? Do we start to set up for a wombo combo? And that really comes down to the item aces to decide.
Certainly does. It is a map full of chaos. The winner of this one will take the lead here. Can Seraphic bounce back? Let's find out on World Tour London Night.
Starting things off here on London Night. Now, this was a track that Liiv SANDBOX used to be very good at in item mode in the previous meta, but so far it did seem like they wanted to avoid it, and Seraphic brings them right back onto it in round 3.
See if any barricade value comes through. Not really. Only actually slowing him down a little bit there, as Youngsu going to be in first place here. Wisp will connect.
Yeah, he'll just take that early, right, so he doesn't have to get stopped right before the jump there. Just got to make sure he doesn't lose too much timing on that. Dalda continuing to take these upper roads, right, with some of these early boosts to try to make sure he can maintain a lead. Now, do they have the arsenal to protect him as you go into lap 2 and 3? That's the real question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Now, Snoopy does have a lightning picked up here as well, something that we are highlighting now because it is such an impactful item for that final push, and it can really disrupt your jumps as well. It can actually straight up just prevent you from getting on the high ground or doing that Ferris wheel jump properly to actually finish things off. So that's definitely one he's going to be holding for 2 more laps. So now it's probably likely that he's going to be cycled back to the rest of the, or back to the back of the standings so that he can actually play that more supportive role. Ideally, he'd like to pick up a Angel, and wow, they get a second one.
Yeah, and they have their own Angel. They have a UFO as well, which, yeah, it's going to be used right away because Minsik's got to be the one that maybe starts to push forward just a little bit. Now Snoopy just saying, okay, well, I have an opportunity here. He's got the water bomb, so he's happy to fall back and try to make a timing attack against the opponents. And Liiv SANDBOX, they don't have too much to defend themselves with just one Angel Shield ready to go.
Yeah, Minchik did take that long outer to try to then push off the boosters there, and he's sitting towards the middle of the pack with his Angel at the ready here. Is it going to be all about that final push here? We're in the last lap now. No one going onto high ground either here. UFO onto JiMin.
And another one in store as well. I mean, Liiv SANDBOX are just not able to get through. The EMP finally comes out. Yeah, but the lightnings are coming through. Now another one up for Seraphic. It hits them in time, but Promise, can he boost forward? Because Byungsu's got his own boost, and Byungsu will be able to shoot forward just in time. The gap was a bit too far ahead. Liiv SANDBOX will be able to secure that finish.
Yeah, they had such a wide lead there, and even with the timing of all those items coming through, I felt like Seraphic had the tools to do it. The execution a little bit off there, and they're not able to lock down those two front runners, even though they could slow the rest of Liiv SANDBOX. The lead is too great, and they don't have the tools they need to actually push through, and a magnet also used there from JiMin as well. And ultimately, it's Byungsu crosses the finish line here, so Liiv SANDBOX taking the lead here, one item track away from closing this series out 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, Seraphic, it really seemed like they were maybe just a bit too eager, right, to rely on those lightnings, things like that, and the kind of double, triple UFOs, but the last one gets EMP'd right away, doesn't have an effect, and then they have to start to say, okay, well, now we don't actually have as much time as we thought to catch up into first place. Well, Seraphic backs against the wall. They gotta try to get these last two tracks if they want to take us to an ace match.
They certainly do, and we'll watch this one more time as this is the first lightning coming through, and Byungsu and JiMin, they are just able to avoid this, and the magnet comes through, and Promise, oh man, I didn't actually catch that before, just crashing into the wall at the last moment there too. That is really not what you want to see on that final push.
Yeah, JiMin, I think, also just kind of blocking him, right? So he didn't really have a choice. He either had to try to take the as close to the wall as possible, and then he crashes into the wall. If not, he has to just try to go around or maybe slow down even a bit more. So JiMin with some nice support play for his teammate. Meanwhile, Byungsu had that boost. So I think that's also the type of comms, right? Byungsu saying, I still have boost, so I'll be the one to cross the finish line. JiMin says, okay, I'll just take care of the opponents right here. And SANDBOX able to secure their second round win.
So we're moving into this one in just a moment, guys, having a lobby being remade, and Seraphic players, they don't look too shaken up, to be honest. I think they're having a pretty good understanding of this is a David and Goliath match that they're fighting into, and hasn't been the greatest for them, but they're not going to lose heart.
Yeah, well, we will be going to round 4. This is Liiv SANDBOX's pick. It is Mine Magma Cavern.
Off we go into Mine Magma Cavern, one of our tracks with some of the most chaotic situations that can occur because it gets very narrow on the tracks themselves here. And right here, the mine tracks, or mine cart tracks. And, you know, if you're going to get hit by a lot of items, you may fall off, which could lose you a lot of momentum.
Very well could.
Speaking of.
Yep, there we go. We're already seeing a couple come out. And because of the narrowness as well, we just saw right up front, the water bombs also having some good impact. Same with the barricades, right? Even if you don't hit it, you have to slow down to try to avoid it.
Really can make barricades quite strong here, whereas on a lot of other tracks they feel almost useless in pro play, as the Angel will deny that lightning. So lightning actually used for tempo, very rare to see, actually. And it's going to be burned right away. Promise still holding on to one. I guess if we've got two more,
yeah, might as well, right?
Might as well.
I mean, also, I think with how rare Angels have gotten, and also the fact that they've been nerfed, right? They only block you from one attack. I think maybe trying to prioritize the fact that getting that Angel out is more important than us holding on to the Lightning. There are other items that can slow down our enemies.
Yeah, when you have this many, I mean, they have another one picked up. That's 4 in total they've had now picked up.
Well, the forecast is pretty cloudy here for SANDBOX because Seraphic's bringing all the lightning and thunder. Another one comes out. JiMin has his own shield, but the rest of his team all gets hit and slowed down.
It just feels like even though these are coming through, they're not getting the momentum that they really want here. Snoopy's caught by this Wisp here, not able to catch up to Dalda. So, I mean, these lightnings, they keep stacking. Another one, by the way. Oh my, like, what is happening, William?
They have so many, but Dalda still has another shield as well. He's so far ahead, we don't see him.
Yeah,
right
look how
now
far he's on the map. Look at the map. He's like over 100 meters ahead here, and even though these lightnings keep coming out, they're not catching up. They don't have the proper tools to actually lock him down. They need to follow him up with item attacks. Minchik gets caught here. Another lightning comes out, but Hyunsu gets it in a second. And man, Liiv SANDBOX are crushing what will likely be our final race here. Angel to guarantee it.
Yeah, and another shield as well. Dalda just didn't get hit by a single thing in lap 3, and like you said, well, sure, you can have all the lightnings you want, but if that first place is so far ahead. What ends up happening is you can't chain it with things like the missiles, right, like the wisps, and so that shield is literally reserved for the lightning.
And while you're holding all those lightnings too, you're losing inventory space for other items you can use to fight for tempo. I think this might be like the lightning lesson game that we take, where it seems like one of the most strong items in the game, but actually we see in this case where they have like 5 of them, you know, just being tossed out over and over again, doesn't always equal winning if you can't utilize it correctly. So Liiv SANDBOX will take the win here despite the forecast for rain. They brought their umbrellas.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the shields were there for Dalta. And Liiv SANDBOX, I think, feeling much better about their item mode performance today against Seraphic, really having the counters ready to go and being able to adjust with the arsenal they had. And I also just find it kind of always amusing that Neil is that player. He actually looks so menacing in the photos. He knows how to pose. But then on stage, he's always like the nicest guy and the sweetest one who's cheering everyone up and really encouraging everyone. Because look at his picture.
Yeah,
He's like an ice cold killer ready to race on the tracks.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of actually meeting him after Preseason 1 and chatting with him. He's a very nice guy, and you can tell he's got a real love for this game and just competitive gaming in general. He's got a lot of friends, pro gamers from other games too. He's definitely a competitor and looking menacing in the photo, but Liiv SANDBOX looking menacing in the standings as well now with this 2-0 victory here, getting also a +5 in rounds here after defeating Seraphic 3-0 in speed and then getting the +2 here from the 3-1 in item. They will move up to first place, actually 2 round points ahead of KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, so things starting to kind of, you know, as the dust settles, go down to what we would imagine would be the standings, right, as we start to enter the 3rd round of the round robin. SANDBOX and FREECS up top, Songnam Rocks and Aura right behind. Now Sensation and then potentially Showtime actually are the 2 teams that we're kind of waiting for that upset to happen at some point. Hasn't happened yet. Meanwhile, Seraphic probably the weakest out of all the teams that we have here this time in Preseason 2. They haven't been able to catch a lucky break just yet.
Yeah. I mean, taking that item over Kwangdong was like their claim to fame that they have. At least they've done that, and that shows that there is some promise here. There is some potential, no pun intended. But I think that, you know, we do kind of know now, as we've seen several races for all of these teams or several competitions. The tier list, like you said, is kind of settling to what you expect. So we'll see. I mean, I'm still excited for playoffs. I know we're very far away from that right now, but the fact that Aura went so close with Kwangdong today puts them down in the standings, but it actually doesn't really tell the story, I think, of how strong they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aura, obviously, big spotlight there. And then same thing with Songnam Rocks, right? They seem to really struggle last time, just barely getting by with the ace matches. Can they try to escape that and really win as a team this time around? And then, I mean, Sensation, they're trying to come in now with a bit of a roster change since Byung-Soo moved over to SANDBOX. Can they maybe break into the top 4? And potentially in Showtime, again, I mean, right from their opening matches, we were like, okay, it would be an upset, but it wouldn't be too crazy to imagine either of these teams maybe barely making it to the 4th or at least kind of contending for that in 5th and 6th.
Yeah, no, I think it's not unrealistic to expect, and we're still in early days for Kartrider Drift, so players are going to improve. They're going to grow over the course of this season as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were all the matches. Let's review how things shook up today here at the KDL. We started things off with our first team match of the night. It was the KWANGDONGFREECS, the defending champions, against Aura, and Aura put up a good fight in speed mode, but KWANGDONGFREECS, they prayed to the item gods and they answered today.
Yeah, they certainly did. A very good series, though. Definitely recommend checking it out, especially Speed. If you guys didn't watch it, I think it's definitely worth reviewing that footage, man. Check it out. But that was, of course, our first matchup. We did have our second team matchup third today. I don't know if we'll show that one again since we just reviewed that, but we also had our solos that were in the middle, our final group in Group D. So a lot of stuff was settled tonight, and I do want to see what our groups are going to look like for the round of 16. Here are the group results, of course, here for solos, which we just were talking about.
Yeah, Group D, we just had that today, and it did come down to a tiebreaker between JiMin and Nock, and JiMin was able to eke that out at the end over on Winding Slopes. So it's JJONG, Luning, JiMin, and Spell, not necessarily in that order, but they make it through to the round of 16. And like you mentioned, Wolf, curious to see when we'll be able to see that update for the round of 16 groups, because this is a pretty stacked roster of solo matches.
Yeah. I mean, you look at all these names and, like, there's just not one player in here that you're going, well, that one wouldn't be too bad. You know, most is the player that we have as a dark horse, right? He was one of the younger, newer players here to Cartwriter, but he looked very good, very consistent. So he's also a scary opponent. Like, he's one of those players you look at and you go, well, maybe he's not that scary. No, actually, yeah, he's pretty scary. Dusty as well, I think, playing better than people expected in Group A.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to go on Most a little bit further, right, is that he's that player's player, right? The guy who all the players are like, no, we know what he's capable of online. We've seen what he does on the servers. We know the records he holds. He is a scary guy. While he's not as well known to the wider audience, curious to see how deep he makes his run here in the solo matches as he tries to go for a great debut season. But then, yeah, the rest, I mean, these are all very familiar names, both in teams and solos. So, like you said, I mean, I don't think you're looking at this and saying, well, I really hope I'm grouped with somebody. Then I could at least get 4th place or anything like that. Meanwhile, of course, our last match of the night was the one we just watched. It was Liiv SANDBOX taking a pretty one-sided victory against Seraphic.
Yeah, it was one-sided, but it's one of our strongest teams, our currently first team in the standings versus last. So results kind of going as expected. And Seraphic, they didn't look too upset by it. They didn't look too emotional or anything like that. I mean, it's a tough matchup, right?
Yeah.
In early days in preseason, just get as much experience as you can. You're lucky to play against a team as good and as coordinated as Liiv SANDBOX. To have the opportunity itself is quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of take the stage in. I mean, preseason is where you're trying to get the experience, get used to Cartwriter Drift, continue to help develop the meta on your own as well, both in speed and item mode. Because, again, we still haven't kicked off the actual regular season to really start counting the careers, right, and the records of Cartwriter Drift just yet. That will be coming later in the year. So Seraphic, hopefully, they're just taking this all in. They're not too broken up about it. Maybe they'll get 1 or 2 wins later on in the round robin as well.
Yeah. So here are the matches we are going to have on Wednesday. It's the triple team match day. So R versus SANDBOX. A banger.
Yeah, that's a banger.
That's a big one. And then you have Sensation versus Rocks. I think this one's pretty good too. Sensation, I think, overdoing expectations right now. People are pretty pleased with the results so far. Last one could be one-sided, but we'll see if Showtime can finally settle in and bounce back in a big way. They still have a few more days to prepare for that one. And, while we do have a clear favorite, I'm hoping Showtime will show up.
Yeah, I mean, Showtime also seems to be pretty aggressive, right, in their choices and their strategy and their style. And while, maybe it's high risk, high reward, and the rewards haven't quite come through just yet, curious to see how GWANGDONGFREECS reacts to it. But yeah, Wednesday seems like it should be a pretty good night for team matches, especially, again, with Aura and Liiv SANDBOX up top. I mean, that one, again, that's another one that Aura's kind of looking at and saying, okay, we didn't get the win against FREECS, but we could definitely still get it against SANDBOX, try to make that, quote-unquote upset happen.
Yeah. Guess we'll have to stay tuned to see what the round of 16 groups are going to look like. Might not be announcing them tonight, but it is going to be pretty stacked, and that, of course, will resume not on Wednesday, but on the following weekend. That's where we have solo matches. So it's a good time to be a Cartwriter fan. It's a good time to be a Cartwriter fan, excuse me.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this preseason 2 is looking very great so far, so don't miss it, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for myself, Will Chill, and Wolf tonight. We'll be returning on Wednesday with the triple team matches. We'll see you then.
From the moment we locked eyes, the universe stopped time. You caught me by surprise.